1 second. 1 second. You're all not wearing hats and jackets. I don't need to see that. I gotta get my notes. Show me the notes.
Alter, was machst du?
Notes, aber Paper zu schreiben.
I think that's the profile picture. This one?
From my phone. It's upstairs. Apparently, this is also a profile. Interesting, I didn't know. See, I didn't know how do you do it?
How do you make a profile picture?
No, I'm looking on your background.
It's not. It's like all the people's videos are off. If they don't have a profile picture, then just like their name.
Right. So how do you make a profile picture from us?
Under, you just put on a profile
Where
picture.
do you go to
Here.
put on? Okay.
I said always off.
It goes off automatically.
Really?
Dear man, oh my little beautiful son, you are so sweet. You are so very loved. Yeah.
Okay.
David Klinsky. Go
to your profile photo, change it. So you either take a photo, you don't take a photo now,
Yeah, from what?
or choose a photo from your photos.
No, not a, I don't want.
Huh?
I don't want of it. Yes.
I am muted.
Take a picture of Derher.
No.
What age? So this is the official health guidelines?
For these kids.
What?
Yeah.
There's no food.
We get in a moment, just making sure everything's set up.
Thank you.
Can you?
All right, Bruchim Habayim,
Can you
Bruchim Habayim, everyone.
make it a little louder? How to make it louder?
Okay, welcome to the first of its kind Hisvadus panel, Derher live, and we hope that this should be the first of many. As the Derher magazine has been very successful and very much needed by so many people around the world for a few years, and due to the fact that everyone's at home, we are now able to have it live, and we hope that it should be Nachas Ruach to the Rebbe, and I would like to ask Rabbi Mendy Greenberg, Shliach to the Rebbe, to Wasilla, Alaska, to host tonight's panel, and Rabbi Greenberg.
Thank you very much.
Didn't you tell me
Before we start, I just want to bring up something that the Rebbe mentioned many times by Fabringens. And b'shas we get together in this type of kinnus, or many articles that are in the Derher throughout the years, or in the following kinnusim, such type of kinnusim in the future, Be'ezus Hashem, there are those who could ask or taina or think that this is either something that goes into the category of Siddish entertainment, Siddish Dvarim V'Telim, or those who look at it as history, Greda, and lav dafka see how this is something loizehu iker likus de taina, and this is not something yisoid or something that's important. And what's really negea, which is 100% true, is b'ikar to focus on the yonim pnimim of limud hatera, sidus b'chlal, and the Rebbe's teira b'miyuchad, maimarim sichos, the Rebbe's letters, etc., etc. So I'd like to point out the interesting word that the Alter Rebbe brings, that says of sidus b'chlal in Teira Eir and Parshas Miketz, that the Alter Rebbe speaks about the two type of tzaddikim that's brought down in the pasuk in Micha and explains in Maseches Sukkah, that there are the Shiva Royim and the Shmeina Nesichei Adam. And he goes and explains that the Shiva Royim are Roya, as we know about Moshe Rabbeinu, is called Raya Mehemna, that he's Mefarnes, he gives Emunah and Das to Yidden. And B'chlal, the Gemara gives 7 tzaddikim who are part of those Shiva Royim. And the Alter Rebbe explains, what does that mean? A Roya is Mashpia to Yid in a Eifen Pnimi, specifically through Torah. B'shas you learn Torah and you understand Torah, B'havana v'asaga. So it becomes a part of you, becomes internal, becomes who you are. But yet there's another category of tzaddikim, which they're called the Shmeina Nesichei Adam. And the Gemara gives examples, Yishai, the father of David, Eliyahu Navi, etc. That those are Nesichei Adam. And the Alter Rebbe explains that they're mashpia in a Eifen Makif. Not in a Eifen Pnimi, not like a Raya, but they're mashpia in a Eifen Makif. Sorry. And therefore, so from one hand, it's not pnimis, not like where you get something and becomes part of you internally, but yet it's because it's so high, because it's makiv, it's a lot higher than the ashpa pnimis. Therefore, you cannot receive it in a pnimistic way. And he gives an example for that of someone who watches a tzaddik daven. B'shas you watch a tzaddik daven, sometimes the hashpa, then the hisayrus that you get from watching the tzaddik could be a lot greater and have a much more powerful than everything you could learn and understand through Torah and a sikha and a maimer, etc. The Alter Rebbe continues that Mashiach has both of these qualities. Sai is mashpia be'efim pnimi through Torah, and Sai is mashpia be'efim makif. And the Rebbe in the famous letter of Gimel Tammuz Tafshin Yud, when he says many people are looking to find the qualities of the Frierdiker Rebbe, he says some say about Mesiras Nefesh, some people say this, that, and the ultimate the Rebbe says that he's the Nasi, Hu HaReish, and through him come all the Hashpois. And then the Rebbe goes on to say that there are many different tzaddikim, many different Nisim throughout the generations. Some are Mashpia Beifim Pnimi, some are Mashpia Beifim Makiv, some gave Nigla, some gave Chassidus, some gave Inyanim Gashmin. And some gave a few of them all together. And the Rebbe is mitzaying to this mimer in Derher. And then the Rebbe says, but from the Alter Rebbe till the Friedrich Rebbe, they gave everything. They gave Makif, they gave Pnimi, they gave Nigla, they gave Chassidus, they gave Gashmis, Ruchnis, all type of Ashpois came through the Rebbe Siyenu. And the Maramokim that the Rebbe brings for this Vart is what it says in Derher that B'negei Moshiach, he's Sai Reya and Sai Anisich. He has both qualities of Reya and Nisichim. So there's no question that this is something we saw by the Rebbe, that from one hand we have a Yam, we have a sea of the Rebbe's Pnimis, Hashpa, the Teira, and the Nigla, the Teira of the Rebbe, and the Chassidus of the Rebbe, etc., etc. But at the same time, we have the Indian of the Makif of the Rebbe, which is in a certain way a lot higher than the Pnimi, which that is why, for instance, by looking at the Rebbe, by watching the Rebbe, by davening, or in Benidun Didan, the parades, which was no question, besides the actual sichas that the Rebbe said, which we're going to be hearing now from our panelists, the many hours that the Rebbe spent and standing and just looking at every single child and every person that passed that parade. So therefore, this, when we're sitting together and speaking about these inyanim, this is not stam history, and this is not stam interesting way to pass time, but this is a crucial part of Iskashis in and of itself, to Iskashi to the Rebbe's Makif, the Makif that the Rebbe's mashpia to us. And as the Rebbe says many times by Fabring, it's B'shas, there's an Iskadim Kidaboy, the Nasim is Kidaboy, and hopefully that this Niskadim, if we're going to be Zeicher, we're going to remember the precious moments by the Rebbe. So it'll bring to the Nasim that we'll be able to see the Rebbe again with Payal Mamish, with our own Gashmis to Ge'egen, and the Rebbe will take us out of Golos Bekar of Mamish. I'd like to start off with asking Rabbi Alter Tenenbaum, the Rebbe Shliach, to please maybe give a tzir and hagdama to what the parades really were all about. Rabbi Tenenbaum?
I'm on mute. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just want to take a moment, and I don't know how I got to be first, but I'll utilize the opportunity to say l'chaim, that even though it's not Lag Baimer, we are continuing within the spirit of Lag Baimer. On a personal note, today is my mother's yahrzeit, so I want Neshama to have an aliyah, a meditation for all of us. L'chaim Mashiach now. So the thought is like this, that if we take a look at the history of parades, the parades go back to the times of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and I believe it even started on Pesach, on Sukkot. It started another Yom Tovim, and then evolved into a parade. The original events happened in a park, the park's at the end of Eastern Parkway, and then they would march from there down Eastern Parkway. If you remember what a tolucha looked like in the early days, you marched down Eastern Parkway. Eastern Parkway had benches on both sides. People used to sit, and this is what the parade used to march down Eastern Parkway. And then eventually they would end up coming 770, and the Frierdiker Rebbe went out onto the porch, or the story that he went to the window, and then there would be a sicha, and so on and so forth. The thought is like this, and I wasn't able to verify it. I once heard it from someone, and if someone wants to slug me up, you could, but we're not going to listen to you anyway. And that is, who's the engine behind this? Who was the impetus? Not necessarily the one that started it, but it seems like the Rebbe was very, very much involved in bringing children to the Frierdiker Rebbe, that the Frierdiker Rebbe should see them, they should walk in front of the Frierdiker Rebbe. There was an idea of bringing kids, bringing people, bringing children to the Rebbe. I was talking yesterday to Mendy, he mentioned, and I looked it up, that Rothstein once said that based on the pasuk, just by the fact that the Kain sees it, so just by the fact that we bring children, we bring people to the Rebbe, just b'riyas upon him, the Rebbe looks at them, it's gonna change them. They're gonna be different. And it seems like this was something that the Rebbe pushed, or was definitely behind orchestrating in the times of the Frierdiker Rebbe. I believe there was a hefsek of a few years, and it picked back up with the parades at Tafshin Gimel. And Tafshin Tezvav, it became the official parade. Now, as you can see from all the videos and those that remember it, the Rebbe was seen to us. We don't know behind what took place in Gan Eden Elyon, but when we saw the Rebbe, there were different tenuas. Some people remember Napoleon's march, the Midas HaNetzachin, Tkiya Shefer. The parade was definitely Malchus, not only, but definitely Malchus. That the Rebbe would walk out of 770 and on a big red carpet with all dignitaries standing around, with chashuva people. It was mamish, with everything else, was definitely the Melech, the king, coming to view. Now there were, just as an aside, we saw the Rebbe's Midas HaMalchus, not in there, just to give you a dogma. I always refer to as Melech Basada. Those that had the schus of walking the Rebbe home, begleiting the Rebbe Friday night after davening, and the Rebbe would stay later, or Shabbos morning, and the Rebbe would walk down Eastern Parkway and up Brooklyn Avenue and encounter all interesting types of people, or regular people in all interesting types of modes, Nachen Cholin, Faran Cholin, Nachen Arbis, and how the Rebbe would wave and be Misyachis. And look, to me, that was always Melech Basada. Oh, one of the cases we saw, the Malchus of the Rebbe, how the Rebbe was walking and as a bagegen balabata sheiden in all types of situations. But the true Maluch of the Rebbe, the true Malchus of the Rebbe, the true full royalty, and you could see it on the video for those who weren't there, how the Rebbe would walk slowly up to the podium with the music in the background. It was really, truly, this was the Melech B'Yafyot Chazanei Necha, to see how the king was standing there and looking at everyone with the ganze fanem. Now, it's not up to us to decide what was the value of this. Again, we're speculating that this was the Rebbe wanted the children and adults to come, but on the video at the end of one of Lag Baimer parades, when they thanked everyone that's coming, the Rebbe then takes the mic, and the Rebbe thanks everyone, especially the children, especially the boys and the girls. So we could assume whatever we want, but the Rebbe tells us that to him, the greatest tainug, the greatest thank you, and the greatest pleasure is seeing the children. Now, all of this, 35 years ago, we could have sat here and thought about it, and if we're sitting at 770 and we wanted to have all types of rayonis. In Tavshim Mem Gimel, I think the Rebbe gave us Klada Eisius. They had a beautiful presentation, a Tachnit went into the Rebbe, they had a very big singer came, which at that time was in. Also, I guess soon we'll get around to the details of the parade, how the parade started from Sibah Shabbos, release time, then it went more from, and then it went back. But that's, we'll continue that later. So they brought this big speaker who was very well known, and he sang a song, and everyone's familiar with the video. But I just think that sometimes we forget, and we watch it and we smile. The singer was introduced to sing another song. The Rebbe turns to Rabbi J.J. Hecht, the Rebbe turns to Rabbi Hecht, and the words that we get over there is pretty much, it's not a concert, today's a busy day, he still has to go to the mikveh tzavasa, and he's going to Reil. So parenthetically, if anyone had a havamina that the Rebbe is not a busy person, and if anyone had a havamina but the Rebbe time is not precious, and we know how precious the Rebbe's time is from Tafshin Daled after Chafav, and the Rebbe used to come down and daven with the minyan. At one time he came in and he's waiting for the Bacham, as we can imagine, Bismillah Chesky Kratz, was 2 minutes or 4 minutes, I forgot what it was. And the Frierdiker Rebbe then called on Hall and said, if you'd only know by my Yedim, by the Rebbe, how precious, wie tired a minute, 2 minutes is, you'd make sure the Bacham are there ready, that they, not when the Rebbe comes down to daven. And this is Tafshin Dalet. So we know that the Rebbe is very busy. But in case you didn't know, the Rebbe pretty much said it over here. I have a busy day today. Today's a holy day. It's a special day. It's Lag Baimer. I have things to do, right? So it's not a concert. Let's get on with it. Okay. So they go to the 12 Psukim. The 12 Psukim are said beautiful. The Rebbe says the Sikh is beautiful. Ad kan moving. At this point, if you and I were writing the script, the Rebbe would wave at all the children, which would still be a beautiful idea. All the children would wave back, and the Rebbe could blow kisses, we saw, and whatever, and that would be beautiful. And the Rebbe would go back to his room and get this busy day. The Rebbe stands for 2-3 hours on Lag Baimer, on this busy day, on the day that he told us, in case you don't know how busy I am, he told us how busy it is. And we can be sure whatever he told us, and Lag Baimer, the Rebbe's most important thing that he finds is especially to children, to stand there and wave, not to continue to speak sichos. I'm not even talking about how the Rebbe continued to talk, so the neshamas would have heard, stand there and wave, that every child and adult, a man, a vibe, whoever it may be, walks in front of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe smiles at them, and the Rebbe makes with the hand. This is truly something unbelievable and unparalleled. I don't think there was anyone in history. And again, I'll finish my 5 minutes, and we'll let the mashpiyim and those that know better, because this really goes into a whole tangent of why the Rebbe Bechlal spends, again, that we know how precious the Rebbe's time was, and the Rebbe spent time giving out dollars, and the Rebbe spent time giving out kuntreisim, and to children, and to women, and talking to this one, to that one, when the Rebbe very easily could have appointed people, because there were times that the Rebbe did. Dollars used to go through Tankisten, the Rebbe used to give out certain things to Chavri HaKelel. So when the Rebbe wanted to find alternatives, the Rebbe had a lot of alternatives. Nevertheless, beruba, overwhelmingly, and again, dollars is the Heilal Kalana. There was an idea of the king, the Melech, standing there, the Yechidah of the Rebbe connecting to the Yechidah of every single individual, and that could only happen one by one individual and another. So we're not going to go into the sidetrack, but just to understand what the Lag Baimer prayed was, really that we're not talking about a Farbrengen that went long, to stand and talk to children, to stand and just give a day to children, and not only to talk to them, but just to look at them, and the kid should look up on him, and the give back, and the Yachas, to me, I think that needs to be said before we get into the many details, which are even more fascinating, and I'm very anxiously waiting to hear the rest of the panel. Chaim.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Tannenbaum. And with that being said, I think we will go over to Rabbi Shimon Hecht, who could maybe tell us a little bit about the beginning of how the parades all started in the first place, how his father, Rabbi Yaakov Yehuda Hecht, Alav Shalom, got involved in it and ran it throughout, was in charge, stood at the head of it throughout the years, and how it evolved to what it became, as we know from later on in the Lameds and the Mems, Tafshin Nun, and maybe also could let us know a little bit about the Rebbe's Yachas before the parade, during the parade, after the parade, whether it was Biksav or Balpeh, Rabbi Hef directly or during the parade, or Yechidus, Minus, etc. You can tell us anything about this. Thank you very much. Rabbi Hechter? So Rabbi Hechter, Rabbi Shimon Hechter is here?
Why is it not unmuting?
Oh,
Hello?
yeah.
You hear me now?
We hear you, we hear you.
Yeah, mute. Rabbi Hecht, you're on mute.
Okay.
We hear you. Rabbi, we hear you.
Now you hear me? Shmuel,
Yeah.
you hear me? Okay. So first of all, I just want to add one thing to what Rabbi Tannenbaum mentioned before about the parade was really the ultimate, what I, at least, Kfenias Daiti, the ultimate level of Malchus by the Rebbe. There's one additional point and that is by the Lag Baimer parade, the entire Farbrengens was primarily Hasidim, and other people would come to Farbrengen. But by a parade you had the biggest outside crowd, the number one for many reasons, because it was during the day, it was not night, it was outside. There were the biggest Fremde crowd that ever came to a organized program by Chabad, by Lubavitch was the parade. And that was another aspect. Not only did we see the Rebbe as our Melech coming out, but it was the Melech from Kol Am Yisrael was seen very clearly by those parades. Now, as far as the point that Rabbi Alta mentioned before, it is very interesting that the Rebbe was probably behind getting together the children to come to the Frierdiker Rebbe, because on one year Rosh Hashanah, which was in the Yuds, I don't know, Tav Shins, I don't know what year it was. It had to be before Ches. So it had to be maybe from Tavshin Dalet to Tavshin Ches. My father then got together a group of kids in the Chutzner of 770 on Rosh Hashanah afternoon. and he had a program with them. And then the Rebbe came over to my father and told him that the Frierdiker Rebbe wants to see him upstairs. And he went into the Frierdiker Rebbe, and my father said then the Frierdiker Rebbe was sitting on his wheelchair. His kapot was open, his tzitzis were hanging out. On his lap was a tillim, and he was saying tillim, and his spot, he said, was on a slant a little bit. And he gave him a bracha then. Father doesn't remember what he said. But again, it was the idea of bringing children to the Rebbe. And every time my father wrote a zettel to the Rebbe pertaining to the parade, he always, he never would sign with a title. My father wrote him many, many zettels to the Rebbe. Hardly ever did he sign with a title. Every time he wrote about the parade, he would write Yoshev Reish Mesiba Shabbos. So back in the Shins, release time and Mesiba Shabbos worked hand in hand. And again, I don't know exactly to what extent my father was running Mesiba Shabbos. I know he was running release time, but they walked hand in hand. And if you look at the parades, one of the things that parades was sort of a parade when we demonstrate, we want to proclaim things. It was SOS, Save Our Shabbos. Over the years, it became many other slogans that were added. But one of the main slogans that were back in Tavshin Gimel and in Yud Gimel, Tavshin Gimel, the parade was on Purim. And then in Yud Gimel was Lag B'Omer, and after that it's continued on to Lag B'Omer. So I guess Mesiba Shabbos and the parade went hand in hand, and I guess that's the way my father got into the job. In Tavshin Yud Gimel, actually my uncle Shlomo Zalman did the translation then for the parade, and in Tez Zayin, there's a machlokes. We're not sure exactly who did it. If someone knows, they can please fill us in. Who gave the translation then? But starting from Yud Zayin on, that's when my father began doing the translation. Now, in the preparations for the parade, my father took it very, very serious. What do I mean that he took it very serious? That like 2-3 weeks before, he walked around worried and concerned that the parade should that primarily the Rebbe should be happy, because that's what he did it for. So much so that after many parades, my father would go over to the Rebbe before he walked back into his room, and he asked the Rebbe clearly to the Rebbe's Gewinn Zufrieden, and the Rebbe would always respond, of course, positive. There was once a year that the Rebbe did, I don't think B'Shas Ma'aseh, but the next day after my father on the Duch, the Rebbe told my father that he noticed there was very few release time children. So Alta said before, Tana said before how every child walking by the Rebbe was important, but not only the Rebbe noticed which children were there and which children weren't there. So it wasn't only the amount, it wasn't only the quantity of the children, it was the quality of the children as well that the Rebbe was concerned with. Are we limited to 5 minutes?
You can continue.
I don't want
Continue.
to.
No, continue.
I should continue. Okay, tell me when to stop.
Okay.
So, Alta Tenenbaum mentioned before about when there was a singer who sang, and the Rebbe turned to my father with a bit upset about. Actually, it was by the third or fourth song that the Rebbe turned to my father and said, "What's going on over here?" Now the problem was that originally, when my father sent the program into the Rebbe, the singer was supposed to be on first. And when my father got the answer from the Rebbe, maybe there was a misunderstanding by Maskiras, and maybe not, maybe just we overdid it. We don't know. But the Rebbe said that the singer should sing. The Rebbe is going to come out first, and then the singer is going to sing. So we weren't totally in the wrong over here that we put this thing up and it was there. The problem is that he went overboard a little bit. But my father took it very to heart. And the next day he wrote itself to the Rebbe. And in my father's style, asking the Rebbe for Mechila for the Agmas Nefesh that he caused him the day before by the parade. So the Rebbe told him, Hakel Machalach, you have nothing to worry about, you are totally forgiven. And then he wrote again, Hakel Chulu, Gimel Pam Chulu. So 3 times, Machalach, Machalach, Machalach. And then the Rebbe adds why, or Ubefrat, especially, as we know that after the parade on the way to the oil, the Rebbe drove by the fair on Empire Boulevard, and he went through 2 blocks. And the Rebbe told my father that after I saw the great success that you had on Empire Boulevard with the children, even if you made it something wrong, you're totally forgiven. There's nothing to worry about. And along the same lines, in Tavshin Mem Ches, the Rebbe did not come down to the parade, but the Rebbe did come down to Empire Boulevard. And as the car was driving by, my father banged on the window, and I imagine, I don't know if it was on the Rebbe, it must have been on the Rebbe's side. I guess Rabbi Krinsky opened up the window for him. And my father told the Rebbe a sort of a report of the parade, a short report. So then again, once again, the next day, he felt that he may have overstepped his bound. And again, he wrote it to the Rebbe to ask, again, using the word that the Rebbe should be Yislach. Yislach likveikunus adner, shayali chutzpah, that I had the chutzpah to open the window, to get the window open. And I spoke without permission. But my father explained, I wanted to give good news. So on the insel, in order to give the Rebbe some simcha. So the answer, the Rebbe underlined the word katsas, that it wasn't a katsas. And after the word simcha, he said, the Rebbe added the words, not only did you give me joy, but you gave me simcha rabba. And he said, Ad rabba, tach u'b'yoseh chutzpah. He was happy that my father had the chutzpah to open the window to be able to give him the good news. And then the Rebbe continues on, and kafisha reisi achakach b'nei yeladim yeladim mashkifim, as the Rebbe says, especially as I drove by and I saw the faces of the children. As I was traveling, the Rebbe noticed, like Alta said before, not only the Rebbe noticed that the children were having a good time, and that is what was important to the Rebbe. That the children are spileless. So the Rebbe noticed this on the children, and the Rebbe appreciated that very much. So this was something that again, we don't understand exactly what the greatness. We know that the fact of the matter is that Lag B'Omer is a Yom Tov for children, starting from birth till everything that goes on in their life. But clearly we see from the Rebbe's participation in the parades and the attention that he gave to the parades, that it was something very important to him, and not only important in the fact that the children were there, but that the children should actually have a good time. And I'm going to let the other people talk. This time later, we'll come back to some more answers.
Yeah, thank you. We'll have more chances to continue for bringing after this round. So thank you very much, Rabbi Hecht. And we're going to continue on with Rabbi Ben Sin Stak, who I think was involved in the parades from Tafshin Lamed Vav and on, and was very strongly involved in the parade in many aspects of it. And first of all, I wanted to know if you could add a little bit in Hemshech to what Rabbi Hecht said about different things that the Rebbe has commented on, the parades, etc.
I know by one of the parades, the Rebbe called him Rabbi Hecht, and he told him 4 different things that he should give over to me about. One was that the parade was very nice. One was the story with the boy who was, when the Ferris wheel went around and got stuck, and to get out on the bottom, the boy was stuck on top, and the boy was scared and he screamed out Krishma. And the Rebbe said there was Kedai, that the boy should scream out Krishma, and the whole thing was Kedai. It happened to be late. I became a chassan. I found out, I told my brother-in-law, told me that his sons were in the Rebbe's house and told the Rebbe in the story. And that's how the Rebbe knew the story. My nephew was born in the Rebbe's house, and they told, and the Rebbetzin told the Rebbetzin the story. Then the Rebbe also said that we should be careful that from now on, it wasn't actually by the parade, there were no trade for animals. To put on, to make sure that by parades, no one should use trade for animals. And for a couple of years after I was involved with the parade, I used to put ads in the Kfar Chabad and different places that they should be careful not to use any trade for animals. And the most interesting part of one of the things I remember, Rebbe was very, very, I don't know the right word, insisted there should only be one photographer. And B'chlal, there should only be one photographer who is responsible for taking pictures, and there shouldn't be other photographers or doing anything, because today you could do a lot of different things with pictures. I'll tell you why I spoke for the girls and for Beis Rivka this week, like Mema. I'm getting calls from everybody. They took what I clipped. It was all over the place. So that I saw myself, boy, it's a pleasure. You have to be very careful what you say. So I remember that very clearly. Then there was a different thing. There was 2 parades that I was mainly involved with my partners on my right and left, Major Katzman and Shon Bumgarnen. We hired bands. And one of the bands by the first parade was a big shot if we should for some reason, let the band go through. And we decided to let it go through. By the second parade, also the Rebbe told the uncle, Rabbi Hecht, how did they let that band go through? We thought that if it went through the first time, what would be the problem the second time? So you learn that you got to know what you're doing. You can't just take it for granted. That was I know one time the Rebbe called in Yankelech, and I'm sure everybody heard the story because I said it this week, and I know that it went all over. I have maybe a habit of always making like these sly jokes. Whenever I had in school inspections, wherever I go, I make these remarks, and it happened to take me places. I met Schellenberg Gansberg, and I told him, Schellenberg, I don't understand. Every man in Crown Heights is going to be by the parade. Every lady in Crown Heights is going to be by the parade. Every boy, every girl, one person doesn't come to the parade. So he asked me, I said, the Rebbe said, he looked at me, he says, maybe she wasn't invited. So I says, I'm inviting her to the parade. About a half an hour later, he calls me up and he tells me, Benji, I want you to know she's coming to the parade. That's how the whole, and she came back to the parade, and she stayed in the library then. That's, and I know also that people asked a lot of brachas on Lag B'Omer by the Rebbe. A matter of fact, I had a close friend who didn't have children for a few years, and he asked me to stop and ask Rebbe for bracha. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't easy for me to stop and talk to the Rebbe. So I wrote in, and they wished to help Taka. About a year and a couple of months later, he had twins. And again, to what Rabbi Shimon said before about his father, that we used to sit in his office and he used to write a schedule by the minute, what is going to be by the parade. And it's something I learned. He wrote 10 o'clock to 10 to 10 after 10 this, 10 after 10 after 10 to 20 after 10 this. Everything he wrote down and sent it into them in his pink envelopes.
and the Rebbe was watching always the floats. Everybody knows most of the stories about the floats, and he was happy about them. Anything else you like?
How often did the Rebbetzin come to the parade?
Some history. Twice, I think it was.
What?
I think it was Mem Gimel and Mem Daled, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Mem Gimel and Mem Daled. Twice, right?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rabbi
One
Stock.
more thing, a matter of fact, we send them in an
Okay,
album.
thank you very much.
We send in an album. Okay. What's happening?
Is Rabbi Stock here?
Oh, I didn't know you. Another thing, I remember sending in albums to the Rebbetzin from the parade, and she sent it out. She sent it back to us. There were two albums. There was a blue cover. I think then Shulkrat was the photographer. Velvet Shulkrat was the big photographer in Crown Heights, and we send them to the Rebbetzin, and she sent it back to us.
Wow. Okay, thank you very much, Reb Benji, and we will continue. Now, first of all, I would like to make a pause for a second and just to remind everybody that this is, as Yossi mentioned in the beginning, this is part of the Chassidus Derher magazine, this event, and it's a very chashuva magazine that comes out every month. It's totally mukdash, dedicated to the Rebbe's Torah and to what happened in 717 by the Rebbe, not just the Rebbe's Torah, but as we spoke about, not only Nyan Pnimim, but also the Makif of the Rebbe, and encourage everybody to subscribe. It's only $5.99 a month, and especially in our times when everyone's more at home, it's Eresh Kedai to make sure that us and our children and our wives have this information and bring Yisraelus, Iskashus to the Rebbe, and to Chassidus and to all the Inyanim. So it's very important to subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, or give a gift to somebody to subscribe. I'd like to move on now to Rabbi David Krinsky, which had the big schus to miyasid the Maisid of Gem, which then in the Mems and in Tilchav Zayin Other was from the great chidushim of Afatzas HaMayonis Chutza, not just the Mayonis, but the Makar HaMayon, to broadcast the Rebbe's Farbrengens and Sichos, Chanukah Live, Farbrengens, Lag B'Omer parades, to the entire world, not only just to hear it, but also to we could see. And this was a big uftu then. And also we have because that we also have now today hundreds and hundreds of hours of the Rebbe's Farbrengens and rallies and Lag B'Omer parades and Chanukah Live, etc., which is high quality footage, which is now many of them are available. The Gem has available today. Just Lag B'Omer parades, L'mashal, just came out a new Lag B'Omer parade of Lag B'Omer Tafshin Mem, which I encourage everybody to go to the Gem website and buy it. And they already put out Tafshin Mem Gimel and Mem Daled and Mem Zayin. So I would like to ask Rabbi Krinsky to please tell us a little bit about the history about broadcasting these Lag B'Omer parades, the Rebbe's involvement in it, the heroes about it, etc. There's also another thing we'd like to ask Rabbi Krinsky, but that will leave for a little bit later, regarding the special coins that the Rebbe asked Rabbi Yudel Krinsky, his father, to make, and Rabbi Krinsky, David Krinsky was involved in it. We'll get to that later on. Rabbi Krinsky.
Yes, so first of all, I would like to mention that I enjoy getting to the hair every month. We look forward to it, and everybody in the house reads it and participates with reading it. And it's, of course, very interesting. And not only that, it's very authentic. And especially for myself, it brings back a lot of the articles, Mamish Sachrenis, and we enjoy getting it every month. I just want to echo what Alters Rabbi Tenman said earlier, and some of the other people, maybe Rabbi Hecht mentioned it as well, that the feeling was, even though it wasn't something necessarily that was discussed, or maybe that wasn't the headline, but the feeling by Bochrim and Anash at the time for Chanas for Lag B'Omer, which went on for a couple of weeks, was that the Melech Basada concept, that the Rebbe is coming out. I think that by everybody, it was very, 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 made everybody very enthusiastic. And it's something that was very much anticipated. And I believe that in addition to that, not just it was very, not that just Melech Basada, but I think that the mifsa for Lag B'Omer was really, can you hear me? Because I'm seems like they blacked out. You hear me? Hello?
I hear you, yeah.
Can I be heard?
We hear you, we hear you.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, we hear you. We hear
hear
you.
me?
Okay, I just.
Yeah, I hear you.
My
Yeah.
screen went blank. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll continue. Okay. So what was the point of Brevam Hadras Melech? And I think that there was a big anticipation. It's like how many you Bochum, you like us to go around the city and stop at train stations and bus stops and give out papers to people. I think they used to sign up. If I don't remember, you used to sign up on a paper, and then I think they arranged buses to pick up the kids, and it was really amazing because the parents back then trusted the kids to get onto a school bus with madrichim and counselors that would meet the buses and take the kids for the day and then bring them back home. And people used to push to sign a paper. If I'm correct, Rabbi Hecht, I think they used to sign a paper with a name. I think they used to sign up to come to the parade.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a big essay. How many kids did we sign up today? How many do we have, and where are we holding? And the feeling was, if the Rebbe is coming out, we have to deliver. And the deliver meant that you have to be able to come out and stand in front of 770 and not be able to see the end of the block. There should be so many people and so many, specifically many children. In addition, the focus definitely was for the public school. And you mentioned before about release time. I think it was not only just release time kids, but kids that didn't even participate in release time. And the Cha'era, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's why Lag B'Omer parades were only held on Sundays, because that's when the public schools were closed. And the focus back then wasn't on the yeshivas and the chadorim, because first of all, those numbers were very, very small back in the early years. I'm not talking about in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But even later on, the majority of Jewish kids were in public school. And that was the emphasis, and I think that was Rebbe's kavanah as far as having the Lag B'Omer parade, and that's where they participate on Sundays. So we had started doing the Rebbe's Farbrengens after I was tasked around Yud Shvat Tovshin Mem. And just after that, there was a Lag B'Omer parade that year in Tovshin Mem, but we were not broadcasting yet, and we did record it. And in fact, like everyone mentioned earlier, we have it now. Jem just released it now again. I must say that I watched it myself. I was shocked how well it was done, the recording. I was really impressed with something we had just started, yet it was done. It really captures the parade. And you can see the Rebbe very clearly and very sharp. So that's something that's a big treasure. And then as we developed the Farbrengens and we started broadcasting the Farbrengens, so when Lag B'Omer came up, it was natural that we should do the Lag B'Omer Farbrengen, Lag B'Omer parade, because in concept, it was very much increasing the Rebbe's audience, especially to children that are either home on a Sunday and they had access to cable television. On the other hand, the Frum families back then didn't have any cable television. So it was for that audience that we really felt we were enhancing the Revam Hadras Melech in giving the Rebbe access to that crowd. When we broadcast, the years that we broadcast, I think it was Tovshin Mem Zayin, Tovshin Mem was it Mem Gimel, Mem Dal, Mem Zayin, Tovshin Nun. I think those are the years that the Rebbe came out. Mem Gimel, Mem Dal, Mem Zayin, and Nun. So like I said, the first year we only recorded it, which we have for today, so that has the tremendous value. That's can't calculate the value of that. And then later when we broadcasted, what we did was we had our own translation, and we did it from actually the second floor of 788 and 784, my father's office on the second floor. We were able to see the Rebbe from there, we were able to see the crowd. And we set up like a studio inside the office there. And we had, of course, the cameras downstairs. And I must say the camera people that we had hired came from some of the biggest networks in American television, that they were happy to participate with their professional people and tell us how to do it, because trust me, we had no idea what we were doing. But they came and they were, of course, they were compensated for it, but they were doing it not for compensation, but it was a team of people. They used to do Olympics and baseball games, and they came and helped set up how to capture the Rebbe's parade from all angles. In addition, we had to put it on a satellite. We had to arrange to have capabilities of getting up to the satellite. The only way we can get it from 770 to the satellite was we had a dish on the roof of 784, of 770. And that dish was able to see Empire State Building. And from the Empire State Building, it went out to New Jersey or Staten Island, wherever the uplinks were, to go up to the satellites. So the first time we did the broadcast, I think it was, like I said, in Tufshin Memdal was the first one we did. That one was only for American cable television and anyone that had access to the satellite. Later on in Tufshin Mem Zion, we started doing it more international. And there we had, of course, it went to Eretz Yisrael, it went to Miran. In Eretz Yisrael, they sent it to Miran. I believe it went to, in Europe, it went to London, England, it went to Milan, Italy. And perhaps that year as well, we may have had it down in South America. I don't remember which country we had. So now, when the Rebbe spoke, of course, the Rebbe the cameras were focused on the Rebbe, and we had our own simultaneous translation. Rabbi Kaplan from Baltimore was a translator, and he sat with somebody that was a television personality from documentaries. His name was Les Nirenberg. He sat and they discussed, Rabbi Kaplan did the translation, and then when Rabbi Hef was doing the translation in between the Rebbe Sifis, we would put on different subjects that the Rebbe spoke about. If it was about Mifsoyim, a biography of the Rebbe, we took those 5-10 minutes. We put other things on there because they already heard the simultaneous translation while the Rebbe spoke. In addition, we tried to coordinate with parades and that were out in different parts of the country, that they should participate in it as well. And they had monitors there, so they were able to watch Rebbe's broadcasts during the parade, and this is how they were also able to participate. So it wasn't just people at home, but it was also on large screens, their various venues around the country. Later on in Tufshin Nun, the international capabilities expanded, and at that time we were able to broadcast to Australia, to we were doing Brazil, I think Argentina had it as well, and at that time, by the way, also in Canada, when we broadcast, Canada had it across Canada on their cable television, So there were millions of people that we were able to reach just by using the satellite. Some of the interesting things that happened was, we got back, the Rebbe wanted, one of the things that the Rebbe always wanted after Fabringen or after any Shadur that we had, the Rebbe always asked, Habepel Mamish, with a question mark. I want to have a duch, I want to have a report. I guess the Rebbe felt he spent the time with it. What was Yetz Apel? Make sure that it was worth the Rebbe's time and effort. In the cases of the Fabringens, where the signet of the Fabringen was different, because there was a Shadur, obviously the Fabringens, the times that there was a Shidur was in one style, I guess you could say for the Elam and the Bnei Torah, and the Fabringens that were on the broadcast, you can see that Rebbe spoke about different subjects that Rebbe felt was more suitable for the crowd that was watching. But after every single Fabringen, Rebbe wanted to know the Peil Mamish. So we always looked for duchs to send to give the Rebbe reports of how that was received. And after Fabringen, we had fax machines then, and we used to get faxes, and we used to be able to give a report. In addition, we also had phones set up where people were able to call in. We used to get 1,000 phone calls, and we used to take the names and the numbers of people and their addresses and send them information. And this way, at least that everyone can see a physical duch of how it was received by people. And various people gave their comments on how important it was to them. And through the years, there were a lot of important people in business or in the arts that came close to Lubavitch because they watched the Rebbe on the Shidurim on the cable television. I think that I would give some of my time to the others, because I thought we were only on till 10 o'clock. So tell me.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Krinsky. And I'd like to move on now to Rabbi Shalom Ber Baumgarten, who together with Rabbi Benji Stock and Rabbi Moshe Katzman were involved in the Anhala of the parade, the years, under obviously with Rabbi Hecht. And I'd like to ask specifically regarding there was 1 year, maybe more than 1 year, that there was exhibits on Kingston Avenue that the kids were able to watch when they marched away from 770. And I'd like to ask Rabbi Baumgarten to maybe be marchiv on those exhibits and the yachas from the Rebbe or the Rebbetzin about them.
One thing that was the safety of the parade was very important to the Rebbe. And not only that, and before the parade started, Rabbi Chadakov and Rabbi Moshe, if I remember, Rabbi Moshe was with me. He came out and he was looking for the organizers, and he wanted to know if there's a telephone. There's a telephone that Chas v'Shalom, there's an emergency. And at that time, we got from Rabbi Ben Levin. He gave us a phone with the wire, and we had it on the porch. And we took up Rabbi Chadakov to the porch. We showed him the telephone. And then he wanted to walk around to see if everything is safe and everything is good before the Rebbe comes out. So that's just one anecdote that I remember. Then also that year when you're talking about, we went with floats. We made a bunch of floats, and then also on Kingston Avenue, they made a whole exhibits with the Arba gullies and with the 4 gullies. And I remember that Rabbi Krinsky drove the Rebbe down. And afterwards, he told me that he explained we gave Rabbi Krinsky a duch of each gullus what it is, and as he passed it, so he says to the Budel, that's what he wanted to know. That's one of the anecdotes that I remember a little bit. And then obviously, which everybody spoke about, he went down to the park and he drove around. And there was another year that I remember that the Rebbe was coming down Kingston Avenue and he was driving back, I don't think anything, and it looked like he was extremely upset. He hadn't gone down to the thing, and he was making with his hands back and forth, and he was talking, like screaming. And I was watching this, and to me, myself, I was Eastmensch the whole day. I thought, we did something wrong. I couldn't wait till Rabbi Krinsky came back for the oil, and I called him. I said, "Yudel, did we do anything wrong?" I saw that Rebbe was going like screaming, like, "Did we do anything wrong?" He says no. The Rebbe was upset about something else, a whole different India to worry about, and so that was. We felt a little, we were nervous. Also, I think. What else did I think? Also, I remember one thing that Shimon Hel said that after the parade, Rabbi Hecht used to ask the Rebbe if he was happy. So I remember one year, I think it was either Mem Gimel or Mem Daled, and he walked over to the stende and he asked the Rebbe was happy. And the Rebbe picked up both of his hands, very happy, and sehr zufrieden, which was also, Baruch Hashem, was a big seder. And then there's one year that as soon as the Rebbe finished, you'll see it on the videos, as soon as the Rebbe was finished, it started raining. And Mamish, as it finished raining, the Rebbe was walking inside. But we who ran the fair on Empire Boulevard, among the sitting, it started raining, and we spent a lot of money, and we didn't know what to do. So I remember the Rebbe went to the oil, and I figured I have to ask the Rebbe. So I asked the Maskiris if I can go in, and I stood in the Gadein Atachten. I don't remember who stood with me. And when the Rebbe came back from the mikveh, I was standing right next to the Rebbe's room. And as the Rebbe walked by, I just came out and I said, "Rebbe, the bet abroch is only shregenen." So I was laughing, but he didn't react. He didn't say anything. And the talk rained, and Baruch Hashem, we lost a lot of money that day. That was that parade. And then I remember one year that the parade was extremely full, and it was a big hatzlacha. We had a lot of children. And the next year, it was the parade. We went to Rabbi Hecht. We said, maybe we should make a parade, but it wasn't on Sunday. And Rabbi Hecht was very excited, and he wrote it to the Rebbe that after we machen a parade, then kommen die Jahr. And he got a pretty sharp answer, and Reb Shimon could testify to that. And the Rebbe started telling that you even thinking about it, that you're making a parade during the week, and Chas v'Shalom, that children from release time won't be able to come. And that's more or less. And then I'll leave some to Meisha and to the other guys.
Okay, so Shakayach. Also, actually, one more thing, Rabbi Baumgarten. Regarding the album, the Rebbe once said after the end of the parade to make an album.
I think that was the parade. If they're correct, I think it was Mem Daled. The parade was Mem Daled. Huh?
I think Mem Zayin.
What year is that, Meisha? You have it over there? What? Unmute yourself. I think it was.
We did it twice, 2 years. 1 year was Lamed Zayin, and 1 year is when we did it.
No. When did the Rebbe? Which book was the booklet? When year was that?
This is Mem Zayin.
Mem Zayin. And after the parade, it was right after the parade. The Rebbe said he wanted an album, and he wanted it very quick. He wanted pictures of the whole parade.
Before Shavuos.
I remember before Shavuos, right? He wanted it before Shavuos. And I remember me and Moshe and whoever's work, we got the Usher Hecht was the layout artist, and he and the Rebbe wanted it. The Rebbe wanted all the pictures, and it took us a long time to gather pictures. And it's called the Marches One. And it was actually the Shaya Gansberg was involved in the printing, and we worked mamish day and night to get the best beautiful pictures we got from all the photographers that were there. Even though the Rebbe said we weren't photographers, but at that time we collected from all the photographers all the pictures, and we put it together. And Baruch Hashem, it was a beautiful book. And I remember, I don't know when exactly which it was. I remember it was a Friday afternoon. We were rushing, and I still remember that. Mamish 5 or 10 minutes before Shabbos, we ran and gave the Rebbe the booklet. He should have it before Shabbos, before the Fabrengen. And the Rebbe was extremely gave out. He says extremely. He was very happy with it. He said it's a beautiful book, and he was very, very happy with it.
Okay. I guess there's Rabbi Baumgarten, and we will move on to Moshe Katzman, which I understand it was very involved in. Which maybe was the one who started the fair and empire instead of the kids marching to the park. And as we heard just before from Rabbi Hecht, that when the Yena Yarn Tafshim Gimel, when the Rebbe was not happy about the singing in the beginning, when the Rebbe said to Rabbi Hecht that he's Meichel, the Rebbe connected it with that Tzlach Gdela that was on empire. And also, if you can mention something about your own Zechrenis, about the Rebbitzins' involvement or her bikur at the parade, and anything else specifically you like to speak about the parade.
First of all, L'chaim, shkoyach for organizing this. L'chaim. The Lahemshich to what Shalom Ber said before is in the booklet. If you look in the book, we had a picture of every float. We had a picture of every display on Keystone Avenue. That was one of the chidushim we did in those years, where we wanted to make the things more exciting. So there's a few things. First of all, it's not only myself and Shalom Ber and Benji that were very involved in the fundraising for a certain time. And we're talking about between $80,000 and $100,000. Then was a lot of money, and it was our highest to do it. But there was a lot of people there. I see Rabbi Shimon Posner, Shmuley Posner. He was very involved then, I remember, on Empire Boulevard. And we had to divide our work in an organized fashion. And we had to have it that whoever was involved on Empire knew that we're sacrificing to be on Eastern Parkway when the Rebbe comes out to speak. It would be impossible for us to organize Empire and to be in 770. So I remember one of the times we're talking about the Rebbitzin. I called Benji. Benji had the money in his pocket. And I called Benji. We had, don't forget, there's no phone calls then. There was a radio. I radioed to Benji, I need money now because one of the guys there said that if we're not paying him COD, they're leaving before we're starting the parade. We're an Empire. This is on Eastern Parkway. The money is Eastern Parkway. It was a it wasn't an easy job to get the money. So I radio him, I tell Benji, we need the money. So he tells me that Ebbetson is here. That was the first time I knew that Ebbetson Bachal came to the parade, but Ebbetson did not go. The Poyle sent me the money and everything worked out, Baruch Hashem. The following year, that Ebbetson, before she went to Eastern Parkway, that Ebbetson came to Empire Boulevard and she drove by and I was there, B'Shas Maisa. We didn't totally start. We weren't ready totally. It was that Ebbetson came before 10 o'clock, I'm assuming. The parade started at 10. I don't remember exactly. She came earlier. The actual fare in our head calculation wouldn't start before 12. So we still had some time to set up, but we made a path for her to drive through. We walked her through. So we walked the car through the whole 2 blocks. We made 2 blocks on Empire. We made part of the point of making the whole Empire was that the kids should be more entertained and be happy. So we made it a street fair. So we had 1 block the girls ran and 1 block the Bachar ran. And I want you to all know it was done in a very tziniz de kaufen. It was happened to be myself and my brother, or my twin brother Mendel Schlich in Nebraska. So we were in charge for the boys' side, and I had my sisters involved on the girls' side. So we communicated that way, and everything worked out. You know, this is one of the things that we were very careful to make sure that everything is done al taras hakodesh. Just interesting thing when the day after the Rebbetzin came to the day after the parade, the year that the Rebbetzin came to Empire, I went into the office and I asked Rabbi Klein if he heard anything. I wanted to not the official answer because the interessant Shambed didn't mention it. There was an answer we got from the Rebbe. I don't remember what year it was. That Hatzlacha was L'mayla. Yoisim L'mayla Meshur. Ich punkt im Laschen. Not Stam L'mayla Min HaMeshur. Yoisim L'mayla Min HaMeshur, I think. You have it, Shambed?
I have it here. I have to take a look. Hold on 1 second.
Take a look. They're very. That slachas were amazing, and the Rebbe had a lot of nachas. So
I think it was in Tafshin. It was 5747.
And what's the lashon?
1987. That was the year. The Rebbe said it was Hatzlacha. The answer was Hatzlacha Yeser min HaYeser min HaMeshur. It says Hatzlacha Yeser min HaYeser min HaMeshur.
Yes. So I went into the office and I asked Rabbi Klein, was there anything you heard, like off the record? So he says to me that Ebbetson told him, that they deserve a medal when she drove by and she saw what she saw. I'm not here I'm not a mashpia, far from mashpia, but to continue, Benji, I am a mashpia, or I'm not. I'm not. The shot is mit dem Kopf, also die meisten mit dem Zig. The shot mit dem Kopf. So I to continue on Alters, what Alter started and what Reb Shimon continued about the parade, there was Malchus, etc. There was a very important limud I got from the parade when for some reason 1 year Rabbi Hecht decided to thank us publicly. I don't think he ever did such a thing. I remember he would thank Johnny Hackner. For some reason, Rabbi Hecht had a love affair with Johnny Hackner, and he would always thank him. Maybe because he didn't cut off his microphone, so he was happy with he needed. But he would always thank. 1 year, he decided he's going to thank Benji Stack, Moshe Katzman, and Shlomo Baumgarten. And the Rebbe then took the microphone to all know. So what does that teach me? Teach me that you have to do. Bringen Kinder zum Reben, and that's what's important. Everything else is nicht wichtig. The dank von Rebbe is nicht wichtig. This is not what we want. We need to do what we need to do. If you got to thank you, it's a bonus. And just to conclude, I don't want to put anybody in a spot, but I don't know if Rabbi Krinsky remembers this, but one of the years on a Friday morning, Rabbi Hecht came to talk to us because Rabbi Krinsky wanted to bring the satellite, the big cameras to go up there. And we had chairs set up. That was one of the Chidushim also we had. We set up chairs. Still our years, we didn't have chairs. And I remember we had an argument because Rabbi Krinsky had his interest in the video. And we had an interest in more kids should see. And that big truck blocked at least 50, 60, maybe 100 seats. In retrospect, it was a stupid argument. But Yellow took doch getracht b'shas meise. Now we need the kids to see. The parade is for the kids. So we wanted the kids. So we had an argument about where we should put the truck. We said, put it here. And he said, I can't. I got to put it here. I don't know if you remember, it's a shtus, but it's not such a shtus. Rabbi Hecht, it was a Friday morning. Rabbi Hecht called me emergency. And he says, you got to come down here and we got to straighten it up. Then obviously when Rabbi Hecht said something, we took his word. So we didn't argue. Even if we tried to argue. I remember Grade, it's an interesting thing. Tovshin Memches. When we decided to make the parade of Memches, obviously we asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said we could do it. We tried Tovshin Memches because it was Shnas Hakel. And so that's why, even though it wasn't a Sunday. I think, yeah. And then when we found out that Rebbe is not doing so, that if I remember correctly, Rabbi Hecht told us the answer from the Rebbe. We would always go to his office and he would, by the way, you should just know, he treated us like equals. We'd sit down and we'd just get it. You know, he didn't, so he says, the Rebbe writes there, the answer, Kimedumani, that I never came out to a parade if it wasn't on a Sunday. Kimedumani. So I say to Rabbi Hecht, the Rebbe did, it was Tafshin Vav, the Rebbe did come out. So Rabbi Hecht says, you want to ask the Rebbe that question? He says, go, you ask, he says, you ever put your finger in a socket? I'm not putting my finger in a socket. So I call upon him, das ist Stamm, ein bisschen Narische Sachen, it's nicht Narische Sachen, this is basically what it is. So Rabbi Krinsky, I'm asking him in public if I what he called. That was, in retrospect, it was the right thing to do, obviously.
Say something about that.
But it wasn't, we had the same fight with everyone by the Farbrengens. And I think Benji also remember the Farbrengens, we wanted to put a cameraman standing opposite the Rebbe, and the Bochum or whoever young light was standing there used to fight, and we didn't want to let them in. I say something? The people able to, what's that?
If I remember, I also want to add to the Moshe that I remember when that year, I think it was, that the Rebbe, after he told, the Rebbe said about coming out, so he told the Rebbe, if they're not coming out, I don't know if I want to make the parade, you know, Shimon thing. And I think the Rebbe said to him, number one, if you don't want to make the parade, Fortun Miron, and tell the Shimon, you're not making the parade. And also the Rebbe said, I don't succumb under pressure. So something there like that, I don't succumb under pressure. And it was actually a slug of the parade. Huh?
Rabbi Krinsky, before you mechel Rabbi Katzman, he was so angry that it still remembers and it bothers him. I remember they were so upset, they were calling me, it was unbelievable. But I want to say something and I really didn't prepare because it's a last minute thing. But back to the parades, two things I want to bring up. One, what you mentioned, also when the boys, Eli Lipska used to make a drum thing with kids to drum, and they used to go by the Rebbe. They used to take from Bav Shimon Altera. Then later, when the Baruch Shem got bigger, all the yeshivas made drums, Maristown made drums. The Rebbe used to ask that they should go around a couple of times. The boys from the Eli Lipska's band, the Rebbe asked they should go by a couple of times. Then what? Just history of how the parades worked. There wasn't anybody Balabatim. It wasn't me. It wasn't Mr. Katzman. It wasn't Shalom Ber. It was everybody was equal. As a matter of fact, I was trying to find it. There was a list hanging in the wall. Everybody had a job. Someone had a job of the float. Someone had a job of the food. Someone had a job of left Empire Boulevard. Someone had a job of setting up Eastern Parkway. Every job was cut out for everybody. And there was and we used to sit with meetings. We were three guys from Malta, Kamka, write anything. Charlie Turner became our secretary because he, Baruch Hashem, knew how to type a receipt or a letter. And everybody had their job. I remember Beryl Lazar, the Rabbi Lazar, he was in charge of recruitment. Then there was Israelis who took care of Israelis. Then there were Russians who took care of Russians. And it was very interesting. And everybody had their job. No one around. This when the balabas. Yeah, I tried to watch who spends the money. because at night there was a certain taivas that people had, there was accounts and stores, and we used to sit in the office, and we were Baruch Hashem Breit Chevra, so we weren't but we watched every penny. As a matter of fact, 3-4 days after the parade, an audit accounting went in to the Rebbe from a big Reisman of every achnasa and a chart for the parade. And I was very happy about it. There's one parade that I know. Someone asked me by the parade, are we short any money? And I said that according to my cheshbon, we'll be short that $16,000. Rabbi Klein, Miriam Klein called me in the next day and told me that Rabbi Chadaka wants to see me. And he gave me a check for $16,000. I remember it like yesterday. So it wasn't, I made the parade, this one made the parade. We all made the parade. As a matter of fact, I found an answer from Deborah today if I should get involved with the parade. And I don't remember the exact lashon. Deborah said, it doesn't take so much time so you could do it. That's what Deborah answered. But it wasn't this one. Everybody was equal. And as a matter of fact, if you talk about the parade, the achdus between all the Bachrim, what became that Adi Yemazel, everybody is very close friends. Whoever involved those years in the parade, till today, it's like one big happy family. We worked again, it was very nice.
I just wanted to mention in Tavshin Mem Gimel, after the parade, we wanted to take off the signs from we used to hang up the top sukkim on the 788, and that year the Rebbe asked that we should not take it off. We should leave it till after the Sheikh Chabad convention.
The fire department would ask they should take it off because it was on the fire escape. It's wooden plastic to take it off. So we started to take it off. So then, yes.
Question.
You want to say
Angie
something?
and Schoenberg.
Shimon, no?
Who? Okay, so you guys will know better, but which year it was. But what? 1 year, my father wrote a settlement to the Rebbe because they came to my father and said that I think I understand it, so that his translation was taking too long, and maybe the whole everything, so kids are the program was a little bit too long. The Rebbe talking, and then my father translating. So my father asked the Rebbe, then if the Rebbe can give him before the parade, if he knows what the Rebbe is going to talk about, then it's going to be a lot easier for him to condense and make it, instead of giving it a 15 minutes or 10 minutes, it'll be 3 minutes or 4 minutes. But B'Shas Ma'aseh, to put everything in short, when the Rebbe said it's difficult for him. So the Rebbe answered him then, the Reish Parakim, I'm not going to know till B'Shas Ma'aseh. At the parade, he'll know what he's talking about. Mulvad HaPoshut, Teirasei, Umnasei, Nogo Kov the case, which means the standard things of Lag B'Omer that I was going to talk about. The other thing that I was going to talk about, he's not going to know about till the parade, and therefore he couldn't give the notes beforehand. It's an interesting point. Also, 1 year it wasn't on a Sunday, and he came up with an idea that we'll make a program in front of 770. Make a program in front of 770 outside, and the Rebbe will come out and speak, and then the children will go to every school will go to their own parks. And then we also felt that maybe we can get some more, maybe a little more schools to join to this program. To which the Rebbe said the Rebbe did not want that to happen, because the Rebbe said that people are going to say that it was a parade, and it was not nowhere on the standard of a parade. Therefore, to remove any chash of maybe people saying it's a parade, therefore we should not make the program outside 770. Although later on, after Tafshin and Beis, we did start making the programs in front of 770, because inside it wasn't enough room for everyone anyways. of our own children. So that's a just an interesting point. Okay, back to you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Hecht. I would like to, by this time, to go back. I would like to go back to Rabbi Krinsky regarding the special coins that the Rebbe gave out to his father in Tafshin Nun, and then again in Tafshin Nun Aleph that the Rebbe gave out the special coins that were minted Bekesher with Lag Baimer and Beis Ear. If you could please tell us about that and what went into it.
Yes, so I just want to add just one thing going back to what we're discussing about the gem videos and the broadcast, etc. So early on when we started doing the broadcasts, like I said, we started in Tafshin Mem. So I believe it was Yuchfat Tafshin Mem Aleph was a Shidur, and we did that with a simultaneous translation by Rabbi Manas Friedman. And in the Duch, I described to Rabbi how we did how the Shidur went. And subsequent to that, I think the Rebbe had a conversation with my father while the Rebbe was taking the Rebbe home, I believe it was, about the Shidur. And my father mentioned to the Rebbe that if the Rebbe wants, we have it on tape and the Rebbe can see it. And the Rebbe said, yes, he'd like to see it. And made up a time in a few days. Just after that, they should go into the Rebbe with the tape recorder, the player, and a monitor so the Rebbe can see it. So set it up, brought it down the Tachten, and when the Rebbe was ready, brought it into the room, and I put it on. I believe it was Yuchfat Tovshin Mem Aleph, if I'm not mistaken. And there were times when the Rebbe's Farbrengens you start with a nigun, like you did in Shabbos, and I think even during the week, sometimes years ago started nigun. Later on, the Rebbe started the Farbrengen straight to the Sikha. So the Rebbe wanted to see the Farbrengen. I put on the play, and the Rebbe was the Rebbe wasn't sitting in his chair behind the desk. He was sitting in the chair in front of his desk. He was sitting next to the table, the Rebbe Marash's table. In fact, I was in the Rebbe's room a few times showing the videos. Every time he was really sitting in that position there. And I put it on, and I'm waiting for the Rebbe to tell me to stop playing, stop, it's enough. If after a few minutes, the Rebbe will see the Rebbe speaking, you can hear the original Yiddish, you hear the Rebbe, and then you hear the translation. So it goes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20. It was a long sikha. Tapung sikha that time was like close to an hour. It goes a half hour, 45 minutes. I'm waiting for the Rebbe to say, a daink or something. Anyway, the sikha finishes. I think it was, like I said, it was close to an hour. So the Rebbe turns and says, a daink. And he says, aber next to all, klai buis a kirtza sikha. And to me, it was like, in a way, sort of mind-blowing. And it said it was very, very telling how the Rebbe viewed a sikha, sicha's Kaddish, that the Rebbe didn't want me to stop at the middle of the sikha. So I didn't want to take the chayes to even pick out another sikha. I mean, I would, if the Rebbe wants to, if I start from the beginning, it couldn't happen to be an hour. But I thought it was a very telling message that how the Rebbe viewed, a videotape of his own sikha, and I think it emphasized the chashivas of shivas. So today, when we don't have a live broadcast, and we have the videotapes that they gave out now from Tafshin Mem, and especially the ones that aren't edited in the Bishleimus, I think it's mamish like the original Shchin Medaberes with Agrena, and I think that the Kedusha is Maspashetis to the video, and to those that are watching it now, like they were watching it by the Farbrengen. And that was my personal takeaway. I don't know, anyone can learn Pshat how they want, but that was my feeling and my heritage at the time. As far as the coin was concerned, that was something that the Rebbe, I think the first year the Rebbe did, that was Tafshin Nun. It was Tafshin Nun. It was Yud Gimel Ear. The Rebbe was going to the Eyal. And I believe it was on the way to the Eyal. He was going to the Eyal, I guess because it was Yud Gimel Ear for his brother Yisrael Leib's yard site. That the Rebbe mentioned something to look into the fact if we can make a minta coin for Lag Baimer. I don't remember if my father called us in from the Eyal or if after he came back he discussed with us. And I think that was on a Tuesday. So we tried Wednesday to make some calls to some mints, the mints that we can find, the mints, the stamp coins. And it turned out there, yeah, sure, we can do it. Yeah, we can have it in 60 days, 90 days. It was like. well, we want to have them 24, 48 hours. And they were like, you're kidding? It's a impossibility. It's not possible. And they tell us you first have to have the artwork, and then the artwork you have to make a model or a model, and then from the model you make a mold, and then from the mold you have to make a die, and then from the die you have to stamp the coins. The process is a lengthy process. The stamping itself is not a problem, but the process is a very long process. I also explained that the process has to be that long because the things have to dry, and because the impression that they have to take and they have to put rubber on it, if they don't do it right, when you stamp the coins, the die will fall apart and the stamps wouldn't even make an impression on the coin. So report to my father, tell him this is what the story is, what we heard back. And so my father writes, Rabbi says that they can do it, but it's going to take them a long time to do it, and doesn't look like we can have it for Lag BaOmer. So Rabbi answers back on etc. right away. I don't remember the Lashon, I just remember one of the shaders that Rebbe used, which was a very unusual Lashon. The Rebbe used a Lashon, something Ashamti, that I didn't think about it earlier. I feel it's my fault, the Rebbe said on himself, that he didn't think about it earlier to ask to have it done. When we got that answer, at that point we said, we have to make the impossible possible. And we got on the phone, we were trying to different mints anywhere in the country so we can fly it in and someone can maybe do it. The bottom line, I think maybe it was almost already Thursday morning. On Thursday, we found a mint in Connecticut that told us, you know what, I can stamp it. If you bring me a die, we can stamp it. Okay, so for now we're looking for to get a die for them to stamp. Let's see if we can get a die. Let's make a die. Someone else will do it maybe faster. They said they can do it faster. I think Shai Gansberg at the time was involved with printing, and the only thing we knew from dies is by doing the cost printed sperm. You have the gold stamp on the sperm. They use a die. So I think one of those companies was able to come up with a die, made a mold, and made the die. And the risk was that if the die is not strong enough, then the stamping won't work and it'll fall apart. I mean, Dunta Shashura was, the Rebbe wanted it, so it happened. With our help, without our help, it worked out. And we were able to deliver it to the Rebbe. And actually, my father mentioned to the Rebbe that we found a company that said they can deliver it. And again, the Rebbe sent out a lotion that was very unusual and very special, saying, Tanuach daitacha something to that expression. I'm not sure the exact lotion, but it was tanuach daitacha. And it was in fact delivered, and it came Sunday morning. And then after Shachris, my father, my Shvaga Yossi Fried, and myself went to the Arni Natachten and gave the Rebbe a coin that had just been minted. And we had made a special one for the Rebbe in silver, pure silver. And we handed it to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was very happy about it. So that was a story about the coin. And then vice versa, I was happy. So the next year, even though there wasn't a parade, the Rebbe wanted a coin once again. And like you mentioned, the Rebbe made the coin, then he has to make it for base here. And when he discussed it with my father, he was sort of saying, he was making a connection with Lag BaOmer, and I think he asked my father, again, no one told me exactly in the book, what's the connection with Lag BaOmer and Tiferes of the Tiferes, I think. So maybe I think my father said, Hoid Shebaheid. So he said the Rebbe seemed to be makabel, that there would be a catch, the Tiferes with Hoid Shebaheid, and he said they should make the coin. The first coin that was given out in Lag BaOmer, the Rebbe didn't give it out himself. He gave it out to the Madrichim to give out. And it's interesting, and years later, we found a picture of the Rebbe by the parade, and when he was handing the coin, and you look at the picture, I've seen it lately in WhatsApp, the picture of the Rebbe taking the bag with the coins was a gem envelope. The Rebbe was holding the coins in a certain sack. I mean, it was very heavy, so I can't imagine, by no means were all the coins in there, but some of the coins that the Rebbe gave out initially to some of the people were in a gem envelope. And the following year, the Rebbe stood for hours and gave out the coins himself to everybody. That was in Tafshin Nun Aleph. So that is the story, B'kitzah. I can tell you that back then in the MEMS and those times in our life, I think everybody was working on, I don't know everybody was on jet fuel, because the things that were accomplished during those years, during the MEMS, and were just incredible. The energy, I don't know, maybe young people have that energy today, but I can just tell you back then, things happened and there was nothing impossible. Right? On all the pullahs, no matter what we did, no matter what anybody did, if it was a parade, if it was other things, it was really, it was unbelievable. It energized everybody. Back to you.
I'd just like to mention again that this is part of the Chassidus Derher magazine, which is, in my opinion at least, a chayv kaddish for every Jewish home, very Chassidish home, Lubavitcher home to have, and encourage everybody to, if you're not subscribed yet, to subscribe, and yeah, and it's going to be very good for you and your children, and chulu v'chulu and iniklach, etc. I think for now we're going to finish the formal part of the first chelik of this event, which is, and thank you very much for everyone, for all the panelists for coming, and for everyone, all the viewers. And I hope it's going to be the ultimate niskanim v'nasim. Like I said in the beginning, there will be zeichet to see the Rebbe take it from Yad Mamish, and all the tzaras that last, especially the galus b'teich galus that we're going through the last few months, will be a nefua nisis for all those in nefua shlema. And we'll be able to see the Rebbe and hear Teirah Chadasha from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe will take us out of Galus, and Shavuos will Mekabel Teirah Simcha B'Pnimis with the Meisha Rabbeinu Sheb'Dereinu and Teirah Chadasha Mititetze Mipi Mashiach Tzidkeinu. And I'd like to thank everybody. For now, we're going to continue, I guess, in a Fabringen style with our panelists. If you like to stay, to continue. If anyone has more to share with the Eilam is, I'm sure, thirsty to hear every vart, any zikaron or any nikuda that was connected to the parade, v'chulu v'chulu. Yeah, the floor is open. Anyone like to mahana the elam something? Maybe Rabbi. Yeah. Anyway, anybody? Maybe Rabbi Hecht or Shimon Hecht. Maybe Chazer go tell us more things, answers from the Rebbe to your father, etc.
Let someone go first.
Okay. Rabbi, someone's writing to me that Rabbi Shmuley Posner was involved in the parades. Rabbi Posner, would like to share something?
That may be
Rabbi Posner unmuted. Oh. Posner? Not here.
That insight you talked to Binyamin, he knows what's going on inside. Anyway, Chaim. Yair is there still? You can take the hat off. I muted myself. I just told that Yair I think he's an idiot, so I was muted for that. Now you want to hear what I said.
All right. Yeah, Katzman.
Simcha. With a name like that, crack a smile, please. Thank you.
Put him on mute.
I had my whole sound was messed up. I figured.
Okay.
I just want to add to what Rabbi Krinsky said before about the energy we had in Tafshin Mem. I don't know if you guys realize that for 3 weeks before the parade, it was 24/7. We would go home, and then after we got home, we were on the phone. I came home, Shlomo went to his house, and we're on the phone. And the Viber Flag Shrine, you're the whole day together. Was weiter jetzt? You came up for supper for a few minutes. But that's the way it was. The work was not normal. The amount of work we jammed in this organization in 3 weeks, basically. We're recruiting kids from before Pesach, that they started the recruitment. But later, and the energy was not normal. And that year was the Tov Mem Zayin. The Rebbe told us to put together this book. We had to put together this book. So after we finished Lag Baimer, it was again 24/7 till we gave the book to the printer, which I think we mentioned before. We have to thank big time Shia Gansberg then kicked in, and he took. We were greenhorns. We didn't know what we were doing, and he took over the whole project and he made it into what it was. Just one more thing, I wasn't there. It was Tov Shin Lamed Vav when Andrew Marcel mentioned it. They brought a lot of people from the Russians came. Menachem Galitsky was decided that he's going to get a subway, a special run from the subway from Brighton Beach to 770. Benji, you remember that probably. And he called up, he wanted to speak to the head chief conductor. Sie stuck in head, stuck in chief, aber er hat geredet mit the head chief conductor. There was a train, a subway, came from Brighton Beach to 770, full mit Russisch. That was the energy we had. You had so much gepiled. Even it was still in the limits, but the energy started
By the
70
way,
years ago.
by one of the parades, I'll be a Maida now, since everybody's Maida all the Chatoim and what they felt about videos and this. They were speaking in regular Yiddish, and the Rebbe decides to speak in Russian. He was actually looking for, first I think he asked for Chatzkelevich, if I'm not mistaken. He wasn't there, they couldn't find him, so then I think Moshe Chaim Levin translated. But I'm worried about the covering the bank, paying for the rides. And with the most, I was speaking in Russian by the parade. No one understood, but there were a lot. That parade is when the Russians came with the train to 770. Came from Brighton Beach direct to 770 without a stop. But it was mind-boggling how you thought, oh, who's going to cover the budget? Whoever's going to speak less time by the fair. And by that parade was also everybody. I don't know if everybody knows, there were chairs. The first in Lamed in Mem Gimel, we decided there was never chairs before. Everybody stood outside, and they stood. Mem Gimel was the first time we put chairs on Eastern Parkway. And if you remember,
Benji, $5,000 for the chairs.
Yeah, and I'll tell you better. If you remember, the police told us there's no barricades in New York. Remember, They gave us some story. There's no barricades in New York, but it was very interesting. But again, I want to bring up more that it was not one person. Every person, every bacha, every person in Crown Heights was involved in all the parades. When I was younger, we just moved into Montgomery Street. There was one not Jewish person on the block, and we just moved in here. They asked us if anybody knows where they could keep a tzig, for over the weekend. They bought a tzig for one of the floats. The goat stayed in my garage. My next door neighbor called the police department. These new people moved in here 2 weeks ago. They have a goat in the garage. My father was walking up Kingston Avenue, Motzei Shabbos, with a goat. The ladies on Motzei Shabbos went to 770. All the people in the neighborhood, they're making salami sandwiches. I could tell you the menu from every parade. They made salami, so it was a thing. Every person, fathers, mothers, bachrim, girls, everybody was involved in their Indian doing something big. It was making signs, taking care of floats, taking care of food, but it wasn't one person, it was everybody. It's something that I'll never forget. The achdus, how we worked together. Yeah, we scrammed, we fought, but we all stayed like brothers till today.
Mentioning that everyone was involved. So lately I saw a picture again, it was going around the WhatsApp groups, which I remember that. I was Lamed Vav, I was in Montreal, we made a parade there. So Reb Wolf Kringlas used to come because he was an artist. So he would come and make whatever, posters or signs, whatever he did, he would draw. There's actually a picture on the WhatsApp groups of him with his shirt out, where he's drawing something like Burn Parade. This was something that everyone got involved in.
My uncle had a factory. Before this, when I got it, we were involved heavily. I used to work with Yingi Bistritsky and Fitzy Lipsko, and they used to take care of supplies and getting things. So they realized they could ask my uncle Mendel Shem Tov had a factory of making plastic bags. So he had a dye printing machine. So if you remember the Torah signs, Coca-Cola, so they took oak tag there, and the factory there, they were printing out signs. Torah, like the Coca-Cola, the red, all different signs were printed there. Deutsch Plastic were busy with Deutsch Plastic. Everybody, Brickman then was worked by Deutsch. The Brickmans, they used to send trucks to pick it up. There were trucks, there were cars, there was food. It was a very big thing for the Bachim then and for everybody.
I want to mention something that I didn't hear lately, and I don't know if it's recorded anywhere, but the mice said that they wanted to bring the parade, that it should be like sort of the Rebbe should be on the parkway, facing the crowd, so it'd be more practical. And the Rebbe took the idea and said he doesn't want to move from 770, or whatever it was, but Lepel, they extended the bima all the way out to the street instead of what it used to be by the end of the steps. Could someone elaborate on it?
I don't think they ever wanted to do that. I think you're mixing up that story with one year they wanted to put up a big tent for coffees on Eastern Parkway, and the Rebbe said no. But I don't think that they ever have a
the story makes sense. I remember hearing such a thing. I think it was the year when Mullah Butman and Nachum Pinson were in charge. I think it was that year they wanted to move it.
Yeah,
but it definitely did move over from the steps all the way to the street.
Yes, but the Rebbe did not want to stand on
Eastern Parkway.
On Eastern Parkway. Tough. With the year the Rebbe didn't come out, one year we were kids then. What was it, Lamedalet or?
2 years. Lamed Gimel.
Lamed Gimel
didn't come out, and in Lamed and Mem Ches, both years.
Okay, so
made
Lamed Gimel
on the Eastern Parkway.
So exactly that they made it on Eastern Parkway.
Yeah.
In Lamed Gimel, they made it on Eastern Parkway, I think, and it's a sad thing to remind everybody that one of the reasons there was a lot of fighting, and the Rebbe said on Friday, I think he called in Rabbi Hecht and told him he's not coming out to the parade. And then he spoke about it, Shabbos by the Verbrengen. And everybody made a petition and asked the Rebbe to come. I remember your father was crying, people were crying. It was like, I remember, I was a little kid, and it was like the worst thing what could happen.
Us as kids, we made achlotas that we're going to learn this and we're going to learn that. If the Rebbe would come out to the parade, that was, you remember it was organized over there. Yeah.
1 year, it has to be probably in Mem Gimel. The problem was that when it came to fundraising for the parade, my father didn't do such a good job when it came to the fundraising. And every parade that
was it only for the parade?
Okay, let's keep it to the parade. So he wrote a report to the Rebbe that no one wants to take responsibility to raise money for the parade. So what should he do? So the Rebbe answered then, Im kain lo yase ze hashana. It should not be made that year. And then the Rebbe said, Shaykh la'askani anasha yichshe b'chol shayla. And you should go to Askani and ask if you want to know who they are, you should have made up mihem. I think what happened was that was the year when Moshe Katzman, Shalom Baumgarten, and Benji were recruited. And Moshe wanted to know before why my father thanked them, because the bottom line was that when my father worked with them, there was no problem with money. They took care of it. And that was a big yoch if it's cup. So he was just expressing his appreciation to you guys. What a good job you did. And he felt, he wanted it, so he said it in front of the Rebbe. And he felt that he owed it to you guys. So kind of mocking
that's why he did it. He did what he had to do. This is it.
that Benji and Shalom Bam and Moshe get a lot of credit, or maybe all the credit for the fact that the parade took place. In the beauty of the parade, everyone can take credit, but that it happened that these guys took the achrayas, they get a lot of credit for it. And once they set it up already, and that the Mahalach Baruch Hashem, the last couple of years, it's been a money making, millions of dollars we raised on the parade.
Yeah, you're still counting it from last
No,
year.
but to go back to Rabbi Levertov, it was 1 year that they wanted to bring out, we're talking about, but they wanted to bring it out. The years before used to be before the steps. I think the Rebbe let it go till the end of till the gutter, till the end of the curb. That was that year. But they wanted to go to Eastern Parkway, and that the Rebbe said we should make for that, and he let it extend it a little bit, if I remember correctly.
An interesting.
When did the Rebbe give dollars for, and then they raffled off, or they gave it away? They gave it to people. Was it the year that they had the hardship? That they gave out dollars from the Rebbe to the Rishtatfim?
I don't remember.
It wasn't our year. It's an interesting anecdote. It's an Irish anecdote, but it's for history. It's nice. Shalom Jacobson had a chazaka to drape the stage that the Rebbe would stand on, and he would do it himself by hand, and he would the Mesilas Shabbos logos and all the different wings. Back to what Shimon spoke earlier about on this book that we made. So we have the Mesilas Shabbos logo is the parade logo. There was never a parade logo by itself. Shalom's logo was Shalom's logo, and Mesilas Shabbos was the parade logo. Apparently, that's the way someone decided that, but that's what it was all the years.
Talking about chazakas, Shmuel Isaac Popak had the chazaka to hold the American flag.
That's
to
right.
hold the American flag by the parade. And I want to tell you something. If you thought that it was so simple, if Chas v'Shalom, you would take away the chazaka from Shalom Jacobson or Isaac Popak Oliver Shalom, you make a mistake. It was like a war. It was like everybody was like, you took away everything. I think Bekitza, I don't know if everybody knows how the parades worked over here. When I was young in yeshiva, so the parades were by Taka from the 770. So either we went to Brooklyn Avenue, there were school buses there, what took us to Prospect Park, or there were some years what they used to take us to Lincoln Terrace Park. Then there was years that they went to Rutland Road, to the high school there in the round circle where you see the car. This week up is went around the WhatsApp in the car. And then was also on Empire Boulevard. But also, it's I think the Rebbe came to Prospect Park also in the car. Rebbe came to Prospect Park also. I was a young kid.
And to Maple Street.
And to Maple Street. But also, someone mentioned before about signing up for people to come to parade. I remember they used to there was a raffle. One of the things on the raffle was a bicycle. One of the things was a bicycle because they wanted kids to come to the parade. So it was a ganze glick if you can win a bicycle. So the Bachram used to go out all over the place, and the Bachram they used to sign up, and then there were buses. We also, in our year, to cut the deficit, we got rid of all the buses. They used to get from Varsity buses, the parades were on Sunday. So Varsity had a contract from the city, and they didn't work on Sunday. So we used to get from Varsity buses for Sunday. I think it was $200 a bus those days on Sunday. And the buses used to wait for us on Eastern Parkway. And then that's how the parade went. You went either there and you went to either Lincoln Terrace Park. That was the stand. There were people when the buses came, recruited you, told you where to go, where to stand, where to go. And that's how the parade went. The police department was a job of Fnei Atzmai.
Alta worked with the police, I think, the year we were involved, when Alta was still there.
I think Alta took care of clowns. Am I right, Alta? What was your job?
Alta was definitely Eastern Parkway.
He definitely had a job.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, but Benji mentioned it before, what the Rebbe said that so it was about the clowns. that the Rebbe also mentioned, because I guess we used to have Mickey Mouse and other, probably primarily Mickey Mouse. After that year, we only had Donald Duck or chickens or kosher animals that were, the clowns were dressed up like. I also want to point out two other things. Like it was mentioned before already, that that the Rebbe came to Prospect Park in Vav and I think it was Memtes also. Then we had a program in the park, and we had 1 year the Rebbe came, actually the kids already we had 3 programs in the park then, and the Rebbe came, it was in between programs, so there wasn't really any kids there. But the next year already, it was only 1 program in the morning, so the Rebbe, I guess, came on the way back, on the way to the mikveh, not on the way to the oil. And it was twice that the Rebbe came to Prospect Park in the later years, in the MEMS. In the early years, there's a video of the Rebbe coming when there was a parade that year. I'm talking about even the years when there was no parades, the Rebbe came to Prospect Park. And then there is many years, I don't want to say many, a few years then before the parade, my father had a very heavy heart in the preparations for the parade. And from the tone of his zettel that he wrote to the Rebbe was able to detect that he wasn't in the best of moods. In Mem Zayin, there was such I don't know exactly why it was so, but when he wrote to the Rebbe, then it was with a heavy heart. So after the parade, someone mentioned it before, after the parade, again, my father went over to Rebbe to ask the Rebbe's frieden. The Rebbe turned around to him and he asked him, "Was herzlich mit dein Morish Chayre?" To which my father responded, "Ad the Rebbe hat mir aris geschleppt." To which the Rebbe responded, and this we have a picture with a big smile, makes with his hand, "Ufgeheben." So I think that's a lesson to all of us to remember that we all have hard times in our shlichus, and sometimes we need the Rebbe to schlep us out. Please always remember that the Rebbe schlept nicht raus. The Rebbe he picks us up. So let's hope that we'll all be right up on top, because the Rebbe is going to schlep us up, and we continue to be on top of the world, and we should have atzlach in everything we do.
Amen.
By the way, Rabbi Hechters, you could see that, you could hear and see that on the video also.
Yes.
I think the Rebbe chazes it over twice. Ares geschleppt, aufgehoben. The Rebbe says it twice.
Yeah. So, but I heard different versions of it. So people don't know. I just want to clarify this, and what led up to it. Why did the Rebbe refer to my father as Morish Chayre? And there was another answer which I saw also from the Rebbe, also referring to his Morish Chayre. I guess it was more nervousness from leading up to the parade. Again, my father had one kavanah, that Rebbe should be happy, and that's what he was worried about, to make sure that he should be happy after the parade. So, yeah.
The people ask how did it start the minhag to sing Ani Mamin when the Rebbe comes out to the parade? Why was it like that? Anyone can answer?
It was the day before they sang. It was the old version of Yechi.
I'll tell you one thing, in Tavshin Mem Gimel, the first parade that we were involved, they didn't sing Ani Mamin. By the one in Mem Daled, Rabbi Katzman there almost blew a fit, and he said they better make sure, I remember him screaming on Rabbi Hecht on Friday that they better sing Ani Mamin. Why didn't they sing it the year before? That I do not. Where it comes from, I don't know. But I would imagine that the early years, there was a lot of not Lubavitcher kids. That's a song everybody knew. I would imagine, but there was nothing especially about to sing Ani Mamin, because in Mem Gimel they didn't, and Mem Dalet, if you see, they did. You remember that, Mesha? You were upset about it.
I don't.
Okay, yeah. What do you?
I only remembered I was upset with Grinsky. That's the only thing I remember.
Oh, were you upset? but you were upset because if you look on Mem Gimel, they didn't sing Ani Mamin, and in Mem Dalet
I
they
was
did.
on Empire. I was on Empire. I don't know. I
And
wasn't.
everything was written, by the way, it's interesting to know about Rabbi Hech. He would write exactly Ani Mamin. The Rebbe's coming out, they're going to sing Ani Mamin. And this duch went in front of the Rebbe. What's this? There's going to be 22 floats, going to be this. Everything was written down exactly what's going to happen.
I'll be past this, like I said. I mean, I said in a joke, but Ani Mamin be'Amunah Shalem be'V'yis HaMashiach. That's the most appropriate song to sing. If you hear my father's introduction to the Rebbe, then you'll see that there's no more appropriate song to sing than that.
What I read in Yuman, it was printed from even before the Nesius, one of the early Lag B'Omer parades. The Rebbe asked the kids to sing Ani Mamin, and from that year, they pushed it every single year to sing it again. From that year that the Rebbe asked for it.
Okay.
Stam Shaila, people are asking, was there a specific yachas from the Rebbe to the parades that happened that wasn't on a Sunday? The parades the Rebbe didn't come out to, L'mashal Memches.
Was there what does that mean? Was there yachas?
Was there any minus to the, like? What was the Rebbe's approach to it?
We said before, Rabbi Hecht didn't want to make the parade, and the Rebbe told him he should go to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai.
The Rebbe's official excuse was that he doesn't come out on Sunday.
Only comes out
Only on Sunday.
Right? It was the Rebbe said that. Was there more to it? What do we know? This is what the Rebbe said. So that's why and my father, listen, he tried very hard to get the Rebbe to come out then. It didn't go.
And Lamed Vav, Shnas HaChinuch, what was the story?
Shnas HaChinuch, the Rebbe had started a campaign. He made that year 3 special Farbrengens to establish Shnas HaChinuch. And because Shnas HaChinuch, the parade was put together in 2 weeks, only after the third, on Tiferes of Tiferes, the Rebbe Farbrengen established it at that time. Usually Farbrengen started at 9:30. That year, Olei Torah had their dinner on Sunday night. The Rebbe started the Farbrengen at 10:15. The Rebbe didn't want to interfere with the dinner. He asked when it to be over. The dinner was over at 10 o'clock. The Rebbe started the Farbrengen 10:15. And the Rebbe spoke that time. I think it was Thursday or it was 3 Farbrengen. The Rebbe spoke about Shnas HaChinuch to establish it. So the Bachrim, there was the decided of the Bachrim to make a parade because the Rebbe wants Shnas HaChinuch. So I imagine the Rebbe made a special exception then because so this was the Rebbe's campaign Shnas HaChinuch. So that's the way he had to. I mean, he felt that he should come out to the parade. I don't know, but it was. I don't know if it was Latatas or Leil. I'm not sure what it was, but it was all built around Shnas HaChinuch.
Is there something about the fact that the Rebbe used out the parades to say sichas, not just inyanim for the kids, but b'chlal veltish inyanim, like in Chav Zayin regarding the 6-day war, the Bavos to sicha, and then later on in Tafshin Mem, the sicha in Russian, that the Rebbe was speaking about the matzav in Russia and the Russian government should really permit Yidden to do Torah mitzvahs or Zayin in Tafshin Nun. The Rebbe spoke a lot about Sheva Mitzvah B'nai Noach. It sounds like the Rebbe is speaking to the entire world. Is anything about that the Rebbe used those Gelegenheiten to speak sichas specific, such type of sichas?
You're clearly saying that like mentioned before, that when the parade, the Rebbe was speaking to the world. The Rebbe was speaking to the entire world, so use those opportunities out to speak about these subjects. To a certain level, again, like I mentioned earlier, there were people who came to the parade who never came to Farbrengen.
Okay. There's something about the Shidur to Miron, that the Rebbe had a special chivus to the fact that there was a Shidur to Miron.
I don't know. I can't comment on that.
You have to ask Rabbi Krinsky.
Okay.
She may be getting married in New York or something?
And by the way, did you guys know?
I recently saw, I don't remember where, that the Rebbe thanked the Pinchas Menachem, the Gerer Rosh Yeshiva, for bringing his yeshiva. No, Elia Fisher, the Rosh Yeshiva from Ger, the local Ger. He thanked him for the Gerer Yeshiva to come, which was a big thing, because Hagam Taka were talking before that the Rebbe wanted. There was more for release time children, for Freie kids. But Lepoil, as the years went on, I think the Rebbe really appreciated as the older Gedolim come. And he thanked him. I saw it recently somewhere, I don't remember.
Yeah. There was once, I think it was Mem Daled, that there was clowns dancing on a mitzvah tank, on top of a mitzvah tank. Did the Rebbe give any yachas to that? You don't remember?
Unmute yourself, Benji.
Benji.
Unmute yourself.
I have an assistant. I remember by one of the floats, Kaziminsky's on the Shalema was doing dough, and the Rebbe really smiled and really enjoyed. I remember that was a Yetzim and a Klal thing. The Rebbe was smiling. He was sitting there making dough, challah. It was like an unbelievable thing to see. I remember my eyes now seeing it even.
Talking about that, the years we decided we're not going to have any people on the floats for several reasons. First, the police weren't happy about it. And also, if the people are off the float and they're an integral part of the float, so then when the float is parked, you don't understand what the float is all about. You're missing a lot of pieces. So we decided the floats have to speak for itself without humans on it. The only human we left on the float was Kozheminsky. The only one when he drove by the Rebbe, because they were always smiling.
Also, the Rebbe liked very much the floats with the Upshenish kids.
Right.
Yeah. There was a float they wanted to make with the Upshenish kids. It was the Rebbe had a lot of nachas from it.
He made with his hand.
Yeah, that he's cutting. That was an unbelievable thing.
Rabbi Hecht, in general, were there ever any comments from the Rebbe after the parade about certain floats to mate to your father?
One year there was a comment, but I don't know if it was after the float or b'shas the float came by. There was a float that was maybe showing a day from the morning till at night. And at the beginning of the float, the end of the float was a bed. And the Rebbe, I think it was B'shas Ma'aseh, turned to my father and asked my father, "Where is the pillow?" So the Rebbe paid very close attention to every detail of the float. They drove by, and I personally feel that there was another aspect of nachas that the Rebbe took from the float. That was that the Rebbe saw the talent that Chassidim have. As pointed out always, we made the floats. We didn't hire a company to make the floats. Some of these floats are really highly sophisticated. The technology and the artwork that went into these floats, they were, have the Macy's floats. I never saw a Macy's Day Parade, but I would imagine that we put to shame some of their floats also. At least I know it is. I know it read the Chaim. But the point of the matter is, the Rebbe also took a special. And if anyone has comments, I think the Rebbe took a special pricing.
In Tavshin Nun,
my Chassidim then just came out learning. They sat and learn all day, but they're very talented also. So another aspect over here the Rebbe took in that. That's my personal observation.
In Tavshin Nun, the girls named Chaimushka also went by the Rebbe. The Rebbe took it very emotional and very happy. All the girls named Chaimushka walked by. And talking about the floats, it's Pashut history. It's not how were the floats made. Every Mason made a float. Beis Rivka made a float. About Yeshiva Altera, Free, Ocean Parkway, Morristown. Every Mason, and they worked on it for 2-3 weeks. People worked on it every night, preparing the artwork, and it wasn't professional made. It was electric. There were things moving and going and coming. water, svarim going in, svarim going out. It was an unbelievable thing. But who did it? The kids in our own kids did it. The Bachim did it or girls did it. And the truck came when it was done, pieces were done. Matzah Shabbos came a company called C-Jet, and they came with 20 trucks on Eastern Parkway. They were supposed to come after Shabbos. So we were standing outside after Shabbos punkt on the time, and suddenly you would hear tractors coming with Friday, they would come with 40-foot trailers and 20 and drop them off all the places. Every yeshiva would have to give a deposit. Then they would come Matzah Shabbos, the 7th block on Eastern Parkway, and then they would go out to places to deliver, to pick up the floats in the morning and bring them to Eastern Parkway between Brooklyn and New York. And it was lined up. It was also, someone was in charge of it, where the float should park and how they should go, who should go first, who should go second. It was a procedure. And the parade headquarters worked on trying to go donated food, wood, panels, different kinds of things. I remember an interesting story in the gate to supplies, and we were talking about the parade on Tufshin, I think, Mem Gimel. The first parade we were involved, we used to write into Rebbe, your father didn't sign his name. And it was signed off, is Rebbe Hecht still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
It was signed off, the VAD. It wasn't signed off with any names on the letter. It was signed off the VAD. I was glad that after, I'm sure the guys remember, most of the parade was done on my house here. I had a problem with my back, so we worked in my house. But when I got better, we needed to have a place to store the supplies for the parade. So we went to this one, went that one, we went to Yankel Winter. The stores on Kingston Avenue with yet not the Viber show on Kingston Avenue. And we went this winter if we could have the stores on Kingston Avenue. We didn't know already that it was given over to America. So it was big talking that Yitzhak went to the store. So I went to Yitzhak Winter. He said, go speak to Rabbi Chadakov. So I went, I don't know if mentioned Shalom, but I think you were with me. And other people were with me.
It wasn't Mem Gimel. It was probably in the Lamitz. If you're talking about the Viber shul, it has to be, it was in the Lamitz.
Okay, so then it was in the Lamitz. It could be, I was involved. I was in charge of supplies. So maybe that's why, maybe it's in the Lamitz. So I went to Rabbi Chadakov. I'll never forget it with the, no, it can't be because there was no answers from the Rebbe then. They didn't get no answers from the Rebbe, and it was answered the VAD. So maybe it was a parade before. And Rabbi Chadakov asked me, Vez da achrei? Habe ich gesagt, me alle. Hat gesagt, Vez me alle? Ich sage, meine Chaverim. Sie asked me, nicht allemal darf man sein an Onov. Wer ist der achrei? So I said, ich. So he said, okay, you could get the stores on Kingston Avenue. That's where we kept the supplies. It was a big thing, 1x2s, panels. It was a whole factory, paint. There was trucks, 2 trucks, all day going around to companies, to lumber yards, picking up stuff.
Yeah.
I remember one company was a lumber yard. I think it was called Lumber Headquarters. And I called them and I asked them for supplies. They asked me, so who's in charge? I said, Rabbi Hecht. So he says to me, Rabbi Hecht is one of my good friends. He said, come down, take whatever you want.
It was Shapsi Gross, no?
No, it was Lumber Headquarters.
That was Flatbush lumber.
That's Flatbush lumber. Get your lumbers right.
Time a question. Does anyone know what was the story, how they started bringing the military? They had the army trucks by the parade. Who arranged that?
Goldstein.
General Goldstein.
Colonel Goldstein.
Captain Jake.
Yeah.
One thing I remember as a kid at a parade, there were always horses in the front.
Was what?
There were horses from the police in the front.
They
They left a lasting memory.
Yeah, they left over. You know, by the way, the floats, you mentioned the floats. The first float was in Tafshin Lamed. On Tafshin Lamed was no floats. Montreal used to make parades with floats. New York started Tafshin Lamed, had that first one of the 6 days of the week in Shabbos. Because the Rebbe's Becker is als eingesund. Beis made one on Shalosh Golem. And then there was like a few schleppers, came with cars, pulling horse and buggies. That's it. Lamed Gimel is what you think of, was already all the big floats. The banners were painted in the liquor store already. The liquor store was gone by Lamed Gimel. That's where all the signs were. That's where you're talking about storing stuff in that thing. But I was just mentioning the other day, Lamed Gimel, unfortunately, the parade that the Rebbe didn't come out to was the first time they put a big sign on top of 784 and 788. You see in all the pictures now, later came the Psukim after Tavshin Lamed Vav, Tavshin Mem, but the original sign was Tavshin Lamed Gimel. One big sign going across 784 and 788. And it was the Rebbe's capital that year of Shnas Shiva was Chalkarnei Rishoyim. No, sorry. Yifrach b'yam of tzaddik. Yifrach b'yam of tzaddik, Rishon Lev. And then it had a line, V'yered miyam ad yom. When the Rebbe came a day or two before, whenever it was, he looked up, he saw both psukim, and a message came out through mosquitoes to take off the second line. V'yered miyam ad yom should be taken off. And those were the days we actually had the whole sign, you had to redo it, and geschnitten, and this and that. There was a lot of fun involved in it, but that was also the year when they came up with silk screening, Benji. Remember silk screen? Till then,
That's what I was saying before.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. Jigan says, "Vus bin ich schuldig as die Leibs as I lying." Until then, they had stencils. They had
Right.
stencils. They used to spray SOS, Save Our Shabbos, or whatever. Silk screen started that year, signs en masse, and then we started putting up the big signs on the building, and then we got the machines and so on and so forth. But going back to the floats also, it was something that was obviously very chashuv by the Rebbe, and it gave a lot of bachim who ordinarily weren't exactly in these things to utilize their talents. A lot of bachim, not every bacher exactly has zitzfleisch, and some of us were even ADD. When it came to art and when it came to floats, a lot of bachim suddenly rose to the occasion and shined. I remember Lamed Gimel, we made, I think it was Pesach, Rabbi Shvei was our teacher in Osho Parkway, in Tavshin Lamed Gimel, and he helped us, and he came, because he was also an artist. We do the story with Wolf Greenglass. I don't know if I was told about it. But the Mamish came, so the teachers also helped. This was their way of having the whole class get together and be involved. It was amazing. And like Benji mentioned before, this didn't happen in one day. It was a 3-week color that went Keseda. And the food bill, Benji, I just want to tell you, the food bill that you mentioned before was all because of Shimon Hecht, how much food he ate.
Yeah.
So just to make a note when it goes in.
Alta, I just want to remind you, remember Amnan's Pizza in Borough Park, Dove Shuren, every night at 11:30.
Yeah. But also the recruiting, it wasn't just so there was building floats, there was recruitings. We used to go from school to school. Some yeshivas let you and they didn't. There was all types of ways and prizes with balloons, whatever it took to get them. It wasn't exactly easy to get. A lot of them was a matter of principle, and a lot of them was a matter of the logistics. And I don't know if the stories mentioned about Tavshin Mem, but that's the time that the Sikha that Rebbe spoke that time, 3 Sikhs in Russian, but there was already a pre-thing to that to bring Russians. Where did all the Russians live? It was mentioned already.
Yeah. Head chief conductor.
The head chief conductor brought a train all the way from Coney Island. You know how many people that had on it? As many as come to the Siyumim today. Just by the way. But that's when the Rebbe spoke that time, the 3 Sikhs in Russian with the translation. That is what inspired the meeting after, where a few of us, I don't remember who was there, was sitting upstairs in 770. We came up with 50 something, I want to think 57 is kind, 50 something ideas. We brought it to Rabbi Hecht of changes. Amongst them were the chairs. Signs should be put down when the Rebbe speaks, giving out snacks, having people march in front of their floats, things that we take for granted now. At that time was such kedusha. You think about it, you bring kids to the Rebbe, you're standing. And like by me, either the sun baked 150 degrees, that's a gust not egging. There's very few times you had a normal day. And we stood, and it took Tavshin Mem for people to realize to have chairs.
Mem Gimel. No, the problem of
After Mem.
Mem Gimel, yeah, after Mem.
Right, after Mem. So by Mem Gimel, with chap, with zeichel, banklich, kids could get snacks, and no one's age. And remember, there's a bunch of things that they had then, putting down the signs when the Rebbe talks, some such silly things was some chnish gechap.
But
let me jump in here about this change. This change happened was partially as a result of Tzivos Hashem, because Tzivos Hashem started making those street fairs.
Right.
And when we started making the street fairs, we discovered that you don't need this whole organization of buses. You were talking about before the logistics of buses. It costs tens of thousands of dollars to organize the buses. It was the biggest expense, I think. organize the buses and have them go travel in the morning to pick up the kids. And many times I remember going on buses, who knows where, for an hour and a half ride and bring back 2 kids. We had a whole discovery that the subway system works in New York. And if people want to come to an affair, they'll come. So there were 2 major changes. I remember at the meeting, we argued for a major change. Schoenberg was there, I'm sure, and my brother Mesha was there. We made an argument. We made a presentation. Instead of advertising only in the Jewish press, which cost a lot of money, and people advertise, they read the page, they turn the page, and they forget about it. Go to Art Raymond on the radio. That was a chiddush in Mem Gimel. We went to Art Raymond and used to buy 10 ads for $100. And then you gave him another $100 in his pocket and he got another 30 ads for the other 100. And he would talk about it a whole afternoon on the radio. And people started coming on their own. So we decided, the suggestion was, instead of wasting money on the transportation, we should invest in chairs and we should invest in making a street fair instead of just going to the park. That was the major change that took place then, based on what you're saying now. That was the thinking that made this big change.
And also in Gimel and Dalet, if remember the way we advertise is Kasriel, I think it was Kasriel Center with Zev Kadana had them on the printing place, and we printed the small flyers like in quarter size, and the Bach of Military every night went out with one night they went out to Queens. Every single car in every single neighborhood had a flyer, and that's how people came.
On that note, they printed, I was in charge of the money then. They printed these beautiful flyers in English, Elaine Printing. I'll give him a shout out. That's the new word today, shout out. He printed flyers in Lashon Kodesh, in Russian, and in English, and they kept on printing them, and I thought they were crazy, and they hung them up all over. They were beautiful. I never knew these things. 4 color jobs, 5 color jobs, and they put it out all over. I remember telling Yossi Lane.
Velox.
Yeah, and then they were making small wax. I said I need a bill because I gave him the counting right away. So when he was getting to the total, I said, I hope your point of your pencil breaks. So he said, you know what? Take it for free. And he didn't charge us for the brain bread, anything. I'll never forget it. But back to that note, what you said before about advertising, it reminded me of something very interesting. What happened after the parade? The Rebbe wanted everything should be in the newspaper. The sikha should be printed in the newspaper. But we were very big chachamim. We advertised b'chlal in the Jewish Week, in the Yisrael Shalom, I think was then the Jewish Press. There was Art Raymond, and we didn't put in the sikha afterwards in the Algemein. In the Algemein, Rabbi Chadaka called me in, and he asked me who put in all that. I said we took care of it and everything. Said how come there's no ad in the Algemein? That he wants to know. That he was asked why there's no ad in the Algemein. Next week the ad was in the Algemein, and it was taken care of. He told me that. I want to know why there was no ad in the Algemein. Not an ad. Why there wasn't the sikha? What he spoke in the Algemein. We said, who listened to the Algemein? Who read it? And little did we know that
it was the biggest
Yiddish paper in the world. And asked me, I don't remember this at all. So, and he said to me that the Rebbe taught by the Russian float, when the Rebbe spoke Russian, the Rebbe told Baranover and someone else to go onto the float, onto the Russian float. Anybody remember something like this? Someone just called me and asked me if I remember. I don't remember anything.
Even though I'm for the younger guys, I want to share a couple of things. Things that I heard over the years. First of all, about Kazaminski, I heard that after Tovshin Lamed, I think that was the last years, Dan Holle went once to Yechidus, and the name Kazaminski came up. And the Rebbe said, Veredas Kaziminski. And they start to say how he looks, this and that. And all of a sudden the Rebbe said, the Becker from Lagbeme. So from then, took his, that was his chazak. I want to mention a few things that, Lama Lichtik in Ganeden, what Rabbi Zeitlin did from Tzvas, Tavshanun, even before he brought the Tzvas, hundreds of people, and we saw the Gewaldik strong feeling that the Rebbe had to all of them. And just to mention, he always kocht sich in them, a lesson for all of us. He once wrote to the Rebbe that he's the hard work that he does, and it's so difficult. And one of the things he wrote, he needs tzorich lid oig on every single prat to prat. And on that duch, the Rebbe crossed out the word lid oig and wrote letapel. Another interesting thing I want to mention, Rabbi Groner once verbringt, one sukkis, and he said this story, I think it was Tafshin Lamed, that he said it was a very, very rainy day that day, a very cloudy day. It looked like mamash is going to rain. And he said, again, maybe I'm wrong in the years, he said, but there was somebody there from the government's office, from New York, from the mayor's office, a very high professional guy. And he was standing very close to the Rebbe. And all of a sudden, he bent over and he saw him say something to the Rebbe. He pointed his finger up. So Rabbi Groner said that he asked the Rebbe, like, Rabbi, it's going to start raining soon. How do you have hundreds of kids here, thousands of kids? And the Rebbe answered him these words: as long as the Jewish children will be here, it will not rain. And he said, another thing I want to mention, that I remember in year Tavshim Zion, they made a float. Usually, every float you saw, the Rebbe had tremendous nachas, but he was looking. There's one float we as Bochrim saw that it wasn't so neskabel by the Rebbe. And that was in Tavshim Zion. They made a float how the Svarim are returning to 770. You know who made it?
No, I know who it is.
Yeah. And we saw for the Rebbe's face as he really didn't pay attention to it too much. I'm just telling you the feeling that that we Bachrim got. These are the few things that I wanted to mention. Another thing was, and after Tafshim Mem, the famous parade. Then we got the Bavusta Bomb Sicher right before Pesach, right before Shavuos, like the Apostolit film. That was Tafshin Mem. This was,
Somebody mentioned before the dollar, that the Rebbe gave $1. That was Tafshin Lamed. That was the year, I don't know exactly all the politics that was behind it. That's when Rabbi Hecht was having a hard time putting together. Nobody wanted to help him. And the rumor went out that there's going to be no parade. And Chaim Faro stood up in 770, and he had a very heavy English accent, and gesagt, the Melem Amidav hab ma parad, and we gave hab ma parad, and in 2 weeks they put together a parade then. And that's when Shmuel Butman got involved, and Chaim Faro was running it. Nochem Pinson, and that was the year that the Rebbe said everybody who will give $118 will get $1. The Rebbe gave 118 singles, and everybody who gave $118 got $1. That was Tafshin Lamed. Tafshin Mem was the first time they really did a lot of, I think Tafshin Lamed Vov, they had like 10 floats. And Tafshin Mem, we decided to make 30 floats. And we undertook a massive job from CJET. We got, Bistritsky, Yossi Bistritsky. Joe Bistritsky, he was he gave us, and the lumber, if I'm not mistaken, was Marvin Lumbers. That makes sense?
No.
They were somewhere on Fulton Street in Bushwick, in that area. Anyway, Somebody mentioned also the
Shmuel Isaac used to get us lumber.
What?
Shmuel Isaac used to get us lumber. He used to, he got lumber for the Rebbe's Bimah, if I remember correctly.
No, I'm talking about the, I don't know, I know from Tufshin Mem, I was in charge of the floats and I had to worry about the lumber. I remember it was there. And let's not forget Deitch.
Yeah.
Deitch used to
Plastic.
relate all the plastic.
Right.
Used to send in a whole tractor trailer full of plastic. Tufshin Chov Zayin. I don't think it was, somebody mentioned about the 6-Day War. Now Baruch Hashem, it's unbelievable that there's a decent amount of video from then. But that parade, you can almost say that parade, you were talking about earlier, Melech B'Yofi Terzen Einecha, Melech Basoda, Mideale Teyarim, the Rebbe, Tovshin Chov Zayin, you can say in simple words, the Rebbe became the international Rebbe. Until Tavshich of Zion in Lubavitch, given a kleinchke kehila, how many shluchim were there and how many, whatever it was. I mean, the Rebbe was known as a Gvaldike Bal Meifes, and he had an open door for Yechidus for everybody. But Tavshich of Zion, when the whole world, Crown Heights at that time was full of normal Jews. And normal Jews in those years were survivors. They all had numbers on their arms. And when the 6-Day War was warming up, it was getting hot about for the war, and 130 million Arabs were warming up to attack a little Israel with 2 million people. It was pushtapachat. They were scared to death, and but in their eyes, it was Rahman al-Islam, another Hitler. And here comes the Rebbe. A few days before, he told the Bochrim in Terasemis to stay in yeshiva. And Terasemis was literally maybe 100 yards or 50 yards from the border with Jordan. And but by the parade, when the Rebbe started speaking the Sicha, V'shavtem lovetach ba'artzachem, the Rebbe blew in like a new ruach hachaim. And the Yiddish Welt hat sich poshet gelebt. I remember two specific things. Side the Israeli radio sent somebody to come to 770 to try to get a copy of that Sicha. They flew it for the next day to Eretz Yisrael. They should be able to play it on the radio in Eretz Yisrael. Everybody's saying it's Rahman al-Islam, the end of Eretz Yisrael, and here the Rebbe is talking about such promising words. And the second thing was also the Yiddish radio, WEVD. They also sent somebody to go and get the Sicha. And the next morning, we were in Cheder in Olateda, and I remember 11:15, we all went out to the yard, and somebody took out a transistor radio, and it was on Ali Gesetzen, and we heard the Sicha playing on the radio. Because the Rebbe Poshet B'chai and get out of the world. That was Lag B'Meh. It was one of the things that happened on Lag B'Meh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rabbi Hecht, do you remember anything specific from when your father would translate the Rebbe's Sichos on the spot? Any specific haydas he got after or during if the Rebbe ever interrupted him in the middle of a translation? Any specific haydas?
There was never a rise, but not by a parade, but once, at least once, during a translation in 770 by a kids rally, the Rebbe father forgot to say something that the Rebbe said, and the Rebbe, I think, called over Rebbe Grona and told him to mention that. We don't remember what it was, but there was definitely one time that the Rebbe corrected my father on the translation. I mean, not corrected him. He left something out, and he made sure that he mentioned it. I think that answers your question.
Yeah.
Someone asked about the pipe band.
if the Rebbe, who was involved in that, if the Rebbe made any mention about that when they sang "Viva Mashiach Now."
What is that?
There was a pipe band. There was a certain type of
The pipers,
The Irish.
the Irish skirts, yeah.
yeah. If there was any yachas from the Rebbe about that.
I don't remember.
I think that was what Benji mentioned before that.
I remember that was gonna
Never didn't like that.
Yes.
I mean, it was tznius because skirts was tzniusdik, but
I don't think it was the pipe band. There was a group of scouts, and they had some girls there.
I think that's what it was.
That's what it was. It was not the pipe band. It was another group. Yeah.
Shalom Band, the walkie-talkies, your brother Label suddenly told us, because the bands all used to line up in front of Holy Torah on Eastern
Right.
Brooklyn Avenue. Suddenly, your brother Label called us with the buzzword that there was an issue with one of the bands. And we were freaking out. And I think at the end, we just sent them down Brooklyn Avenue.
Yeah, we gave them a different route.
Right. The Mond, yeah. That's right. I remember.
Yeah. But that was, we were sweating for a few minutes. The Nachum was like, that we got to check them out.
Okay, at this point, thank you very much, everybody, for all our Chashuva guests here for doing this. And I think I'm sure the Elam had a stark hana and was very much in Seder. And again, this will be a beginning for many more occasions like this. And in the name of the Chassidus Derher, and like to again be ma'ater that everyone should, those who are not subscribed yet, should subscribe to the Derher, and it's on the Derher /subscribe. And Al Derech Zeh also been to get the video of the gem video of Stark Meir, everybody, to, if you did not buy the video yet of Lag B'Omer Tav Shem Mem, and Al Derech Zeh the other Lag B'Omer parades of Mem Gimel, Mem Daled, Mem Zayin, to buy them from Gem. And as we heard from Rabbi Krinsky, David Krinsky, that the Rebbe was Meyachas such hadrus covered to his own the sikha that he was saying on the video. Mela David Tzadikim Chaim Kayamim, especially on the video. So everybody to watch the Lag B'Omer parade. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And Grace Yeshakayach and Zenzich mit den Rebben Bekar of Mamish V'Yi Galena.
Amen.
Kayach, thank you very much for organizing it.
Especially the boys and the girls.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Especially the Derher and especially Jam. All the important organizations, we really thank them for all the wonderful things they're doing. Moshe, you know what I found of here, Moshe? Do you remember this? Let me see if you remember this. What year this is from?
Yes.
1 second. I got to take it off for a second. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Now you'll be able to see it better. 1 second. A minute. Here we go. Remember this guy? It's upside down. That was a saga of a colorful Lag B'Omer flyer. It was mit Gerät to get kids to come. And then Tavshim Mem Gimel mit gemacht a booklet with very statechna. Mit the alle pratim, now that the program's officially over, came read alle Shtusim. Here is the Empire Boulevard, the
Yuckleville.
Jetzt können wir reden Demes, ja?
Yuckleville. Gedenkst Yuckleville?
Jetzt können wir reisen alle. Now we could show how amazing it was, Benji. Remember, Benji has the Benji. It was the Hakain Gadol. You have this one, Benji? What year was this? Wait, I have a two-colored one. Yeah, who can guess which is?
You know what this is?
I can't see it. Empire Boulevard.
That's Eastern Parkway.
This is Eastern Parkway.
Oh, the chairs.
The chairs and everything, what's going to happen, the float.
Exactly.
And everything.
Yeah. No, the chairs was a big thing because I remember we were worried about it. Usually the parade was closed that morning. They closed Eastern Parkway, even though it's a Sunday. But for New York City to close Eastern Parkway wasn't so pashida. Here for the chairs, we wanted to set it up midnight, Motzei Shabbos. And because Shabbos can't do it anyway. And I remember it was the logistics of getting a whole crew of people that to put out a few hundred chairs. It was a big thing. I don't know later.
You heard what Rabbi Katzman said. When you wanted, I'm on mute, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, you're on, yeah.
When you wanted things to happen and it should be beautiful for them, but everything worked. We came, we made the chairs, the cop turned around, but they didn't have barricades. That's what they tried to sell us then.
Hey, the manpower that Lubavitch has, the manpower that Deb has, nothing was impossible.
Nothing was impossible.
You're talking about 1,000 Baruchim 24 hours a day. That's millions of hours of manpower. Okay, as official. Hopefully it's not recorded. This is, you know, so when any time that Rebbe said something, the impossible always happened. There was no sheer to it. And that's Bechlal. We remember that the Rebbe's army are Bachrim. In spite of the Derher and the Gem, which was, by the way, started by Bachrim. Gem was started, Rabbi Krinsky was here before, as a Bacher. And it's everything major in Lubavitch happened through Bachrim. And then they get married and you sit around and you look good, whatever. But it's all the boys, Benji. It's the boys that make things happen.
100%.
It's the Bachrim that have no.
Even we want Mashiach now was started by the Bachrim.
Yeah. Heavy mitzvah. Tanks. Who started tanks?
Yeah.
Tanks were started by Bachrim. Think of every mitzvah. Yeah, then old people went along and they came and they put on tefillin. It was all fine and good. But who was the innovators? So we want to encourage all the Bachrim, subscribe to the Derher, and if you have a copy, subscribe a second time so you could read it twice as much. Shnai Mikra V'Echatargim, you could read English twice. And
you didn't change.
Nothing changing. Benji, Bachrim never get married and you go like whenever Bachrim, right? L'chaim, the Eibus will help in. We should stay connected. The love Nashaychis. You really, no one gave Benji a shkoyach, even though Moshe Katzman was his right-hand man and the Shalom was his left-hand man, but
shkoyach, good night.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I want to tell you something.
Continue. Go ahead, hang up. I'll continue.
I want to tell you something.
I can embarrass you when you're not on. It's okay.
Good. I'll get off in a second. I want to tell you something.
Benji shkoyach.
I was involved with a lot
together
of
all the money.
I never wanted a thank you from the. I never pushed for a thank you. Never. I got my thank yous. I know my thank yous. I don't want to say it now. I know Deborah paid me back for all the things that I did. I failed personally, and I should fail it. And I know I never wanted to thank you. I did things in Deborah. No, I did. I never wrote in. I did this. I did this. I did that. I got screamed at certain things, but I never wanted to thank you. So when Mesha said it, he took it out of my mouth. You did things when you're a bacha, you did things just to make the Rebbe happy. That's what we did. I didn't expect a thank you from Rabbi Hecht, especially not a funny Rebbe. It was not my style. With that, I'll leave you.
Okay, thank you very, very
I didn't
much.
eat for 3 hours.
Benji,
Yeah,
it looks like you lost weight, by the way.
I did. Corona, 21 pounds.
When you
Good
stand
night.
sideways, off a side, Benji, when you stand on his side,
Good night.
anyway, to the
Thank you very
Bachrim,
much.
the Periyetza from the Bachrim Heint is Donnerstag Banach Lil Shishi. All of this is nice and fine. And all Benji, you offer, we can embarrass you or not. But the truth is, Rabbi Krinsky mentioned before Gem, he was a Bacha when he started. He was 20 years old, 21 years old, Sachakel. Yes, he had good backing. There was a lot of people in Lubavitch then that did not appreciate it. Besides, in addition to Benji, because he parked right in front of him. If you see all the pictures of the Shvil, Benji used to be right there. But all kidding aside, it wasn't just Benji. There was Spitz Chabad, there was Alte Chassidim. There was the ganze Breitkeit that the Rebbe gave us, and the ganze Breitkeit is they still couldn't grasp it. That how could you put the Rebbe on a video and come in and so and come in with Farbrengen and put up cameras? Because as subtle as they were, they stuck out like a sore thumb. It was Mamish right there in the middle, and the guy sitting in the back, the old. But and so today we look back in hindsight vision, it was an amazing thing. Samo, like Benji mentioned before, you have to do what's necessary. Or was Moshe Katzman, one of the Kahanim. I don't know if it was the Kohen Gadol or the Klein Kohen, but anyway, the point is you have to do what's necessary now, and to capture the videos of the Rebbe, which was a Chiddush, and the Derher magazine, and whatever it may be, whatever it is. The Bachrim, this is your prime. Chaptarain. Now jump onto the bandwagon. get involved in an organization, raise money for Derher, raise money for, I'm just kidding. Okay. Chaim, it's all good.
Chaim,
See you
Chaim.
today. Subscribe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, everybody. A gute Nacht. Kol tov.
Well,